What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto was banished and became the strongest assassin alive? If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. On a well-beaten path somewhere in the vicinity of river country, a blonde swordsman made his way towards the uncertainty of another day. This swordsman was no ninja, and at a glance you could say this swordsman didn't appear to be a swordsman. He was slim, albeit with a fair amount of muscle tone. His blonde locks were done up in two bangs with a spiky top knot protruding from the top of his head. He was dressed in shabby clothes mauled by the scars of countless battles and countless miles. Baggy blue hakama pants covered his modesty, tied off by heavy rope that wound around his slim frame. On his feet were closed-toed sandals in the same shade of blue as his pants, ending just above his calf. For a top he wore a blue shawl that seemed to have once been a kimono, wrapped around his neck like a scarf. Blue gauntlets adorned his arms, the right of which ending in a sort of knuckle bracer. The most curious piece of attire this swordsman wore perhaps, was the wing-shaped shoulder guard he wore on his right. At his side was sheathed a magnificent katana with a curious guard that looked to be shaped in the likeness of a gale motif. Flanked by a bamboo flask that sloshed with an unknown liquid and a simple wooden flute. This swordsman was certainly a curious sight. He looked to be no older than 13, as his face still lacked the rugged lines of a man. His face, however, did have three odd whisker-like markings on each cheek. Once again, just from his attire and appearance you couldn't help but feel this was no ordinary Ronin. The wanderer trudged forward almost mechanically, his eyes were closed obviously in deep thought. His posture and stance were those of someone who had seen death, had caused death, and was always alert for when the Reaper would come to make a pass at him. Things had not always been this way, he could remember long ago, when he was a happy-go-lucky child. Sadly, fate had dealt him a terrible hand, and it isn't easy to cheat fate. The wanderer abruptly stopped. Opening his eyes, he fingered the hilt of his sword. "You can come out of the shadows now, ninja, I know you're there." He spat. Indeed, no sooner had the words left his mouth than a volley of kunai were sent flying towards him. Drawing his blade, he deflected as many as he could and dodged the ones he couldn't. From the trees appeared a masked shinobi, their mask void of any markings. Dressed in standard Anbu gear, but lacking the animal mask that was instantly recognizable, this shinobi stared him off before finally speaking. "Uzumaki Naruto, my master wishes for your presence, be it dead or alive." The mystery nin's voice was monotone, empty, without any distinguishable emotion. It sounded almost robotic. The wanderer sheathed his sword, and instead reached for his bamboo flask. Taking a long drink of the liquid held within the flask, he wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "If you've come to kill me, I hope you've brought friends." In the shinobi village of Konoha, there lived a little blonde boy by the name of Naruto. Naruto, or Uzumaki Naruto, was an orphan. His parents were killed in the Kyuubi attack that befell Konoha 5 years prior, or so the kindly old man who visited Naruto in the orphanage said so. Naruto had few pleasures in his simple life. The orphanage staff neglected him, often forgetting he even existed. And the villagers and shinobi alike refused to admit that he even existed. He was met with hateful eyes when he walked the streets. Mothers would hurry their children along. He got the worst of it from the older generation, who weren't afraid to throw a stone or two at him, or give him a good kick every now and then. You can imagine what all this would do to the psyche of such a young boy. He often wondered, with the primitive ponderings of his toddler mind, why he was so hated. Obviously he couldn't come up with an answer, and the old man only offered him a sad look and the promise that one day he'd know. One day Naruto was being chased by some bullies. It's actually quite funny, really. A little blonde girl had fallen from the steps of a slide she was told not to play on. When her father came to her aid, rather than face chastisement, she pointed to Naruto, who was minding his own business playing in the sandbox. Of course Inoichi Yamanaka knew the boy was innocent, so he bandaged his daughter up and told her once more to stay away from the slide. Angry that her father had not believed her lie, the little girl paraded around the playground telling all the kids that Naruto was mean and had pushed her. This drew the attention of a couple of academy students. They had heard many things from their parents about this boy, chief of which was that he was no good, and would only cause trouble if you associated with him. In a show of false chivalry, the two ninja hopefuls began to pick on Naruto, calling him names and destroying the sand castle he had been working on. Angry, of course, he had kicked one of them in the shin. Angering they began to chase Naruto through the village. The chase was long and winding, and though the academy students had conditioning on their side, Naruto was quick-witted and his little body contained more than enough stamina. Finally, however, they cornered him against the wall of the Uchiha complex. Things would have surely gone rough for the little blonde if it weren't for the timely intervention of Uchiha Shisui. One onyx-eyed glare sent the academy students packing. And that is how Naruto met Shisui Uchiha, the person that would become his surrogate brother. Shisui was everything Naruto could want in an older brother. He was kind and funny. And whenever he could spare the time, he would teach Naruto something, be it a parlor trick or a basic survival skill. As time went on, Naruto saw less and less of Shisui as he was busy with many a mission. Naruto himself was enrolled in the Ninja Academy, with the goal of becoming a strong ninja like Shisui Ni. Though he could count the people precious to him on one hand, Naruto was happy. Sadly, happiness wasn't in the forecast for Naruto's imminent future. It had now been 7 years since the sudden appearance of the nine-tailed fox. Many a shinobi was lost that fateful day. And the wounds were just beginning to close. However, storm clouds lingered on the horizon of the foreseeable future. The prestigious Uchiha clan had lost a fair amount of prestige once it was discovered one of their own was responsible for the attack. The majority of the clan was backdrafted to the police force, a measly existence solving petty crimes and patrolling the village. The Uchiha began to anger, and from that anger was planted the seeds of rebellion. Only the two most trusted Uchiha were given missions and intel by the Hokage, the two being of course Uchiha Itachi and Uchiha Shisui. The vast majority of the remaining clan members began to plan a coup. They would forcibly take the seat of power from the Sandaime, Sarutobi Hiruzen. Of course, the third was alerted by Itachi. Plans were made, ranging from appeasement to mass genocide. In the end, a wait-and-see approach was adopted. Many on the Council of the Leaf strongly disagreed, but the third's iron will was absolute. On a day like any other, Naruto's life changed forever. Naruto was walking home from the academy in the evening twilight. He had been hard at work practicing his shuriken jutsu. On a whim, he decided to take a walk along the Naka River, before returning to the apartment the old man had given him. He remembered how calm everything was. A few dragonflies zipped around. Off in the distance he could hear the splash of a carp. Up ahead in the distance he saw a shadowy figure staggering towards him. As the figure drew nearer, he realized it was Shisui. Running towards his very obviously injured brother, what Naruto saw horrified him. Shisui was covered in wounds, a deep slash on his chest bled profusely. Most horrifying of all was the blood dripping from Shisui's right eye, or rather lack of. Naruto, Shisui choked out. Shisui Ni, what happened to you? Come on, we have to get you to the hospital. Shisui smiled grimly before wrapping Naruto in a weak hug. I am not going to make it, Naruto. No, shut up, don't say that. Come on, we have to hurry. Naruto sobbed. Listen, Naru. I want you to promise me something. Shisui Ni, promise me you'll find a place where true peace exists? Naruto broke down into sobs, hugging Shisui tightly. Goodbye, Naruto, never forget that I loved you like a true brother. With those final words, Shisui Uchiha passed on to the next great adventure. Shisui. The shock of losing his surrogate brother was too much for young Naruto to handle. He blacked out. When Naruto came to, he found himself in chakra-suppressing seals before the council. The old man wouldn't look him in the eyes, and quite a few of the clan heads had a solemn look upon their faces. Elder Homura was the first to speak up. Uzumaki Naruto, you are found guilty of the murder of Shisui Uchiha. Naruto stared blankly up towards the council, before bursting into hysterical laughter. The council members visibly stiffened, and the Hokage looked about ready to break down himself. How dare you say I killed Shisui? Naruto roared, let me out, I have to train. I have to avenge Shisui Ni. No one on that council, bar the most fanatic demon-hating civilians, believed Naruto could possibly kill Shisui. However, the Uchiha demanded justice, and they were willing to go to war. They wanted Naruto's head, and they were being forced to give him to them or face a devastating civil war. The Sandame fought tooth and nail, he even let slip the secret of Naruto's heritage. But that only served to make Fugaku Uchiha even more eager to call for Naruto's execution. You are hereby sentenced to await a month in purgatory. At the end of the month you will be publicly executed. Here was Naruto's first example of how truly unfair the shinobi world could be. In this world, politics could be just as deadly as the deadliest of jutsus. Purgatory was the name given to the holding cell for traitors and missing nin. It was supposed to be a place to make peace with the sins you've committed before the execution. Naruto stopped his hysterical rant upon these words. All he could do was stare up at the people who had just sentenced him to death. Naruto's first few days in purgatory were pure agonizing torture. Alone in a sleek gray room with only a toilet and a sink, Naruto began to go mad. He could swear a voice in his head kept muttering for him to release the seal, whatever that meant. Naruto began to contemplate suicide, to commit seppuku and join Shisui in the afterlife. Within this madness a halfway sane thought was formed: if he died, Shisui's killer would go unpunished. If he died, Shisui couldn't rest in peace. But how could he possibly escape this sleek gray dungeon? Naruto's answers appeared the 7th day of his stay in purgatory. He was awoken from his restless sleep by the sound of footsteps. He looked upon the shadowy figure of an Anbu before he could utter a single word. The Anbu dropped a scroll and promptly disappeared. Grabbing the scroll he jammed it into his pocket and went back to sleep. Come morning, Naruto carefully examined the scroll. To his amazement, it was a technique perfectly suited for his jailbreak. Now he had a little under a month to learn it. Some divine entity must have been looking after him, because he did just that. After weeks of blindly following the scroll, not having any idea if he was making progress or simply giving himself hope to be crushed. On the evening of Naruto's 28th day in purgatory, he finally produced a rough sword-like object made of futon chakra. He was ready. He would avenge Shisui or die trying. It was a pale imitation of the technique, laughably pathetic, when one does not consider that this was accomplished by an academy student. On the night of the blood moon, Naruto struck. Naruto's meals were delivered twice a day via Chunin. Naruto had one shot and one shot only. Tomorrow was to be his execution day. If he failed here, it was over. As the Chunin brought him his evening meal, Naruto lunged at the unsuspecting Chunin, stabbing him brutally in throat. As the poor man choked to death on his own blood, Naruto had no time to feel remorse or disgust. He had to run before someone took notice of the Chunin's absence. Naruto's flight through the torture and intelligence department was a mad adrenaline-fueled dash. He encountered no opposition, but his heart beat frantically until at last he slashed his way out of the building. A blood-red moon illuminated the village. In the distance Naruto could see fires burning in the vicinity of the Uchiha district. All around him ninjas swooped about, they paid him little mind. They were after bigger fish. He began running towards the village gates. Once again his burning need to avenge his surrogate brother fueled his sprint. He had dispersed the Futon blade upon escaping the IT building, but a sense of foreboding prompted him to once again summon the mass of wind chakra. Up ahead he noticed the genin at the gates. Putting on a burst of speed he paid the genin little attention. He rushed by hacking and slashing. He didn't know if he killed them or not, all he knew was that they weren't following him. Naruto ran for an untold number of time. There came a point where the trees all became identical, and he was running more on instinct than command. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, he came upon a clearing. In the middle of that clearing stood a very familiar figure. Itachi. Indeed, it was a blood-soaked Uchiha Itachi. There was blood dripping from his eyes like tears. And not a single inch of his Anbu gear was not stained with blood. "Hello Naruto-kun. I wondered when you'd make it here." Stealing his nerves, he raised his futon blade in a defensive stance before asking the question that had aided his conscience all throughout his stay in purgatory. "Were you the one who killed Shisui?" Itachi closed his eyes and smiled oddly. "No," he said abruptly. "I wasn't the one to kill Shisui, but Shisui was fated to die." Naruto stiffened. "What the hell do you mean?" Itachi opened his eyes, revealing crimson and an odd shuriken-like design inlaid in his eyeball. Shisui was weak. He refused to take the next step in attaining true power. "Who did it? Who killed Shisui. The person who killed Shisui is a true shinobi. one who hides behind the shadows of the very shadows of the shinobi world. Who killed Shisui? Itachi laughed. The person responsible for Shisui's death is you, Naruto-kun. Naruto lost it at this point. He pumped as much chakra as he could into his futon blade. Previously it was no bigger than a tanto. Now it extended to the size of a nodaichi blade. Ittaachi. He roared, rushing forward, swinging his giant blade of futon chakra. One look at those crimson eyes, and it was over. Naruto awoke beside a river. He guessed it was about midday. Standing up abruptly, he noticed the two items that sat beside him along the river bank. One of them he knew from a mile away. It was Shisui's sword. Or rather, what was left of it. The second item was a leather-bound journal. It was Shisui's logbook. Why had Itachi left these things for him? He didn't know, and at the moment he didn't care. His mission was far from complete. In order to find Shisui's killer, he had to first find Itachi Uchiha. No, but that was wrong. He had to missions. He had to clear his name and avenge Shisui, and he had to find a place where true peace existed. Summoning his now familiar futon blade, he carved a crude leaf symbol into the trunk of A. Dispersing his blade, he said a prayer for his departed brother, and walked off shouldering Shisui's sword. Days later, Uzumaki Naruto's escape would be discovered. He was listed in the bingo book as Itachi Uchiha's accomplice, and was labeled a C-rank threat. 6 years have passed since that day. He had wandered the land obtaining the skills he would need to beat the information out of Itachi. He had reforged Shisui's sword into his own blade. His most valuable possession, his brother's very soul. He had killed a lot. His blade in his hands stained with the blood of countless hunter nin and tracking teams. His name was worse than mud in the land of fire. But he had grown strong. He may not be able to challenge Itachi just yet. But the fact that he lasted this long was testament to his will to survive. To avenge Shisui and find true peace. If you've come to kill me, I hope you've brought friends. No sooner than he said that did 4 more nin, as he called them, appear from the trees. They wasted no time on words. The sole kunoichi of the group began to gather chakra. Widening his eyes, Naruto drew his sword and drew a shallow cut on his palm. Genjutsu was dangerous. He still remembered how easily Itachi had taken him out. One of the masked Anbu rushed him, tanto drawn, Tsuchiru Arashi. Naruto yelled, thrusting his sword at the oncoming enemy. The masked ninja brought his tanto up to block the thrust. Unfortunately, he wasn't prepared for the raw power behind that concentrated strike. The tanto shattered and the naked ninja was impaled. Before suddenly turning into a log. Che, I hate the damn Kawarimi. The remaining ninja sprang into action. One sent a concentrated stream of fire towards him. Another created a dragon of mud and sent it his way. And the kunoichi that had tried to trap him in a genjutsu threw a volley of shuriken towards him. The shinobi he had just tried to bisect contributed his own volley of kune. K's no Kabe. Naruto yelled, slashing upwards towards the oncoming death. A wave of wind chakra was created where his blade met air. Anything that came into contact with that wave was shredded or destroyed. The mud dragon, the fire, and the projectile weapons were destroyed. Those are cute masks, by the way. Mommy make those for you? Naruto's attempts to get a rise out of them failed, as they always did. 2 of the nins began to engage him in a kenjutsu battle. Even with their advantage in numbers, they were horribly outmatched. Naruto's sword had the advantage in range, speed, and raw power. No matter what they tried, they couldn't break his defenses. Naruto abruptly sheathed his sword, turning to face the 2. He lunged forward and appeared to disappear, phasing through one of the opposing ninja. A jagged slash appeared on the ninja's chest, effectively eliminating one of the nins. Tsuchiru Arashi, Naruto muttered as the second ninja attempting to decapitate him was bisected. By now the remaining ninja were wary of his sword. One of them tried spearing him with pikes made of rock, but Naruto wouldn't stand for it. Constantly rushing from one place to another, he rounded on the enemy nin, in time to see him erect a stone wall in front of him. Smirking, Naruto positioned his sword in one hand and created a futon blade in the other. He cut through the stone, and subsequently the enemy. Now there was only 2 left, however these 2 were the most dangerous. Naruto was weak against genjutsu. and his techniques could be countered with smartly timed kaiden jutsu. Plus Naruto hated fighting women, something in his nature just frowned upon killing or hurting a woman. It's not like it mattered really, the blank nin popped a cyanide capsule if they were ever captured or shown mercy. So with that, Naruto rushed towards the kunoichi. To his surprise she stood there as he dashed towards her. Naruto sliced her enough to KO her out of the fight. But not deep enough so that she bled out. Only an instinctual need to dash to the right saved him from being burned to a crisp. She purposely got taken out to lull me into a false sense of security. Naruto thought. Now all that remained was the fire user, this one would be tricky. His futon blade was next to useless, and K's no Cabe took up too much chakra. He'd have to rely on his Tsuchiru Arashi and sweeping blade. Wait unless, deflecting the kunai that were sent his way, Naruto dashed erratically towards the ninja. Avoiding the kunai and fireballs sent his way. Dashing through his enemy, he couldn't help but smile when he heard the telltale poof of a kawarimi. He could feel it, the wind coursing through HS blade, begging to be let out. There, in an act of desperation, the masked nin had lunged at Naruto. Turning to face him, Naruto drew his sword with a yell of, "Ha-sa-yo." A miniature tornado was flung from the topic of his sword, catching the blank nin dead in the face. Here was Naruto's ultimate attack, incredibly hard to land. The victim was assaulted on all sides by vicious winds. And that wasn't the end of it, blinking almost instantaneously to the trapped enemy. Naruto began to furiously slash at the imprisoned enemy. He must have delivered at least 50 slashes in the span of a few seconds. Here was Naruto's true ultimate technique, an insta-kill for sure. Impossible to escape, so far, and improbable to survive. People keep running into my blade, Naruto muttered as he descended. He disliked killing, he'd yet to kill someone except in self-defense. There was a time when Naruto would feel bad for killing, would regret taking up his blade. That was long ago, he'd change. He'd survived some brutal fights and he was stronger for it. So taking one last look at his newest victims, Naruto continued onward, hopefully to a place where true peace existed. There are only 3 things assured in this life: honor, death, and hangovers. Currently Naruto was dealing with the latter. Honestly, he couldn't remember when he started drinking. All he knows is that he likes his sake and no damn age limit was stopping him. Oh, he could handle his drinks like Tsunade Senju, but he wasn't immune to the unpleasant after effects. And so in this way we find our hero groaning in pain on a cheap inn cot. He was somewhere in the land of water. Mizu no Kuni, the land of cheap-ass sake and really kinky broads, seriously. Anyways, after shelling out the last of his ryo to pay for the room, and refilling his flask with plain water, unfortunately, the wandering swordsman headed off towards the unknown. It had not been a total waste really. He had learned that Itachi Uchiha and Kisame Hoshigaki had been spotted in the area not too long ago. This troubled him, his standing on Itachi was still iffy, and Naruto had bumped into Kisame some years back. He'd walked away with a jagged scar on his chest, and a blow to his pride. To show mercy was the ultimate insult to a swordsman, for that is to mean one isn't worthy enough to die by the blade. A samurai would usually commit seppuku in such a situation, however Naruto was a ronin. He couldn't die until he'd cleared his name and avenged Shisui. So Naruto kept his ears wary for any signs of danger. He didn't have to wait long. Some 2 hours of walking in relative peace was abruptly interrupted as a platoon of shinobi surfaced from a rather deep puddle. From what Naruto could see, there was about 4 of them, a standard squad. They all wore black camouflage print gear, 2 of them had their lower faces wrapped in bandages. And the sole female, seriously, what was up with that 2 guys to 1 girl ratio, was probably a medic or combat support of sorts. Their obvious squad leader was dressed in a blue turtleneck undershirt over which he wore a kimono much like the ones Kiri Hunter Nin wore. His left eye was obscured by a black eye patch around the edges of which veins bulged oddly. His blue hair was done up in a sort of pompadour-like fashion reminiscent of a fish's fin. Truly an interesting-looking individual. "State your name and purpose, stranger," the one-eyed ninja said. "Just looking for a road home," Naruto said with a sigh. The eye-patched ninja narrowed his one eye at him, before barking an order to one of his subordinates. The ninja pulled out a bingo book and began leafing through pages, finally stopping on one. Naruto Uzumaki, a class threat from Konohagakure, wanted for the murder of one Shisui Uchiha and as a person of interest in the Uchiha massacre. Not to be treated lightly, has dispatched many tracking teams and even some Anbu. Capture or kill on sight with a double comma bounty. Well then, now that you've aired my dirty laundry, how's about you tell me what you want with me? The Cyclops commander narrowed his eyes before responding suddenly. Our leader would like to have a word with you. Now here was something Naruto didn't like. In his experience those words were nothing but trouble. Trouble he'd really rather avoid. Sorry, but I'm not much of a diplomat. You can tell your leader that he can meet me in person on neutral grounds if he really wants to talk. One of the ninjas moved to do something, but the one-eyed commander put a hand to his shoulder. My leader thought you might say that, so she told me to tell you that shark bait shouldn't talk back. Naruto narrowed his eyes at that remark. Why that conniving bitch? So she finally calls in that favor? Alright, lead the way, Cyclops. Alright then, men. Hey him, and woman, he sighed, we're heading back. The Hidden Mist village was in the middle of a civil war. The cause of said war? Bloodline limits, a genetic mutation that results in the development of specialized techniques unique to a family or clan. In Konoha, such gifts were revered and respected. However, things were not the same in the Land of Water. The Fourth Mizukage had started pushing anti-bloodline propaganda on the masses not too long ago, causing fear and hatred of bloodline limits to skyrocket. Tired of the prosecution, the pro-bloodline shinobi and people of power had started a rebel faction aimed at eliminating the Mizukage and restoring order to their chaos-ruled country. In this way we find Naruto and the three Chunin from before waiting in a canvas tent that was serving as a meeting place. The Cyclops, whom Naruto had learned was named Ao, had gone to alert their leader of his arrival. Sometime later found Naruto sitting in awkward silence with the three Chunin from before. Naruto sat crisscrossed with his eyes closed, shouldering his blade. Tired of the awkwardness, the sole female in the room spoke up. So how do you know Lady Terumi? We crossed paths on the road of life under very unsavory circumstances, Naruto said. I saved his life when he got destroyed by Kisame, a voice at the door said. In walked in a buxom redhead wearing a blue kimono cut to resemble a dress. Her red hair was styled in such a manner that it framed her face and covered her left eye. It's been quite a while, Naruto-kun, she said. Well, if it isn't Terumi Mei, indeed it has been a while since you tried to Shanghai me into fighting in your civil war. And when that failed you tried to tempt me with the promise of marriage once I grew older. Naruto said, well, more like spat. For her part Mei could only giggle unabashedly. Oh, but who could resist? You were so cute back then with your little scowl, swinging around a sword twice as big as you. You know, my offer still stands, we could use your skills, and I'm sure you'll grow up to be great husband material. She teased. Che, if this is all you wanted to talk about then my time has surely been wasted. Naruto scowled, as he began to tie his sword to his waist. Instantly Mei was all business. She motioned for him to sit, and he begrudgingly did. I am calling in that favor you owe me, Naruto. I want you to do something for me. The redhead said. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Alright then, what is it you want me to do? One of my men, Zabuza Momochi, is a missing nin. I want you to deliver a message to him. Thr Wanderer briefly closed his eyes in thought. Fine, I'll be your messenger, he said. But in return you've gotta let me stay here for a couple days once I return. I need a break from traveling. Alright then, I'll prepare a messenger's bag with the standard C-rank rations, she said, hitting the poor man. Oh, and a bottle of sake. Naruto laughed at that. You know me too well, he said. Anyways, where is this missing nin exactly? He was last spotted near the Land of Waves, so I'd start there, Mei responded. One last thing, Kisame was spotted in the area some time ago. Be careful, Naruto, I won't be around to save you again. The blonde swordsman fingered the guard of his sword. If we cross paths I'll make sashimi out of him. He said, putting on airs. Oh, that's so cut, you're pretending to be tough again. Mei said, smiling. This of course angered the wanderer. Sayonara then, Naruto said, grabbing the messenger's bag and slinging it over his shoulder. I should be back in a week or two, with luck. After saying his goodbyes, and putting up with more of Mei's teasing, Naruto found himself back on the road. This time was a bit different than usual though, he had a clear goal and destination in mind. Hopefully nothing would go awry, but knowing his luck, that's too much to hope for. In a tree, Cleverly concealed by a multitude of branches and a simple genjutsu, a mint-haired kunoichi sat spying the path below. Her name was Fu, and her mission was a simple one. It had now been about a month since she had become a missing nin and abandoned her village of Takigakure. Her village hadn't felt like home for a long time. You see, Fu wasn't just any green-haired kunoichi. She was a Jinchuriki, a human sacrifice. Sealed within her was a demon, the seven-tailed beetle in this case. As was common when it came to Jinchuriki, Fu was scorned almost all her life. It might seem ridiculous to you, dear reader. After all, why would you mistreat the only thing keeping a demon with immense power from murdering everything you love and hold dear? This has no easy answer really, but one must remember that humans are creatures driven by emotion. Aside from demons and summon animals, we are the only creatures who kill for the sole reason of killing. Nothing in nature murders, every death has a reason, and every death leads to something more. In this way, humans are sometimes overcome with such strong emotions in such a way that our logic and reason is blinded. We create scapegoats, we blame everyone but ourselves. You can say that Jinchuriki in this way are the embodiment of human emotion. They are given no choice in the matter, any sense of normality robbed from their lives by the chakra demon sealed in their navel. Worse than this perhaps is the feeling of being less than human, nothing but a weapon to keep to the dogs of war at bay. If that weren't enough, Jinchuriki are more often than not hated by the place they call home. We cannot blame the ones who blame, for they have suffered much. The creation of a Jinchuriki is quite a messy thing, you see. Nonetheless, we cannot pardon them entirely. Worse than a civilian who would hate a Jinchuriki for nothing more than being a Jinchuriki is a ninja that would do the same. For only a ninja could understand the feelings of a Jinchuriki. If a ninja is a tool, a kunai to be used until it dulls and snaps, then a Jinchuriki is a katana, a mass-produced false blade at that. A symbol of status, sure, it will kill just like a real katana, but that mass-produced blade lacks the soul of a sword. You'll use the blade, you'll kill as much as you can with that faux blade. But one day that blade will break, and you'll find yourself a new one. In this way, a ninja who scorns a Jinchuriki is worse than trash. Fu's story was typical for a Jinchuriki. Takigakure might have only been a minor village. But they had a leg up over the others. They had a Jinchuriki. Of course, this changed little for the standing of Fu. She was bullied and ignored until she reached the age where she could fight back. From then on, she was ignored and treated like scum. She wasn't happy, but at the very least she was a proper ninja of Takigakure. One day Fu had returned from a successful C-rank mission. She had been dismissed with the usual pleasantries. However, she had caught the mention of her name coming from the room where the village elders were meeting. Unable to resist the urge to eavesdrop, Fu listened in. What she heard made her stomach turn. After 5 years of loyal service to the hidden village of Waterfalls, Fu was to be used as a political pawn. It seemed the daimyo of a neighboring land had a son, and that son had an obsession with Fu. In order to secure a better trade agreement, Fu was to be offered off. Such is the fate of a Jinchuriki, all for the good of the village. A pawn cannot take the king, however the pawn has the potential to become a queen. The most powerful piece within the game of chess. Fu ran. Of course Taki chased. In the ninja world there is a saying, a Taki Junin is to a Suna Chunin is to a Kona Hajenin. Taki had trained Fu to the level where most of the village's Junin were obsolete by comparison. And so it was that Fu had fled, dispatching any Junin that had tried to bring her back. It had not been an easy time of it. She'd been forced to stealing from travelers like a common bandit. But in this way she had eked out a meager existence, barely one step ahead of her pursuers. In this way we find her hidden within the trees, keeping her eyes on the road in search of a mark. She didn't have to wait long. In the distance she saw a blonde dressed in blue making his way along the lonely road. She noticed the sword at his side. She looked upon her rusty standard issue wakizashi. She could do with a new sword, plus that wing-shaped shoulder guard looked like it could offer some protection. I am really sorry about this, she murmured to no one in particular. It had been quite a few hours since Naruto had left the rebel camp. His thoughts on the messenger's bag quickly changed from a tacky accessory to a godsend. When he noticed all the goodies inside, ration bars, soldier pills, some blank sealing scrolls, and yes, even a small bottle of sake. Noticeably more content about his impromptu mission, Naruto walked along the well-beaten road. eyes closed, and hand resting along the sheath of his sword. The only people he'd run into so far were some friendly merchants who gave him directions towards the land of waves. Naruto knew this peace wouldn't last, but he figured he'd enjoy it as long as he could. It was as he approached a forest, the trees gradually closing in to box him into a sole linear path. That disaster struck, he paused at the entrance of the forest, eyes still closed. A rustling in the trees alerted Naruto, and he opened his eyes. Big mistake. As soon as he opened his eyes he saw a silvery gleam, then his eyes burned like a Kaiden jutsu. Things didn't end there. While he cursed and rubbed at his eyes, he was slashed repeated by an unknown assailant. "Son of a bitch, what the hell is going on?" Naruto yelled, furiously rubbing at his eyes. His burning retinas finally focused to reveal a petite green-haired kunoichi. She wore a short sleeveless white midriff shirt with fishnet armor underneath, long white armlets, and fishnet shorts with a short white apron skirt over it. Her outfit revealed much of her tan skin. Oh, and she had a wakizashi aimed at his throat. "Please hand over your possessions, I'd hate to have to harm you," she said coolly. Naruto laughed ironically, "Sorry, I rather like my possessions." She didn't seem to like his response, as she took a slice at his throat. Only to be met by thin air. Naruto had phased right behind her, drawing his sword in the process. The kunoichi now found their roles reversed, as Naruto's sword was aimed directly at her heart. "Please give up, I'd hate to have to harm you," he mocked. As he turned to step back, he noticed that his legs were rooted to the ground by what looked like silk. Taking a stab at her, Naruto impaled a log. He quickly sliced off the silk, and rolled to the side. Avoiding a volley of kunai, he dashed forward towards the mint-haired kunoichi. The two engaged in a fierce kenjutsu battle. To Naruto's surprise, she was holding her own despite being outclassed blade-wise. "Ah, you're channeling chakra through your blade, eh?" Naruto said, to which the kunoichi smirked. "Well, that just might be a possibility," she said, laughing and slashing at Naruto's exposed chest. Naruto brought his sword up to block, but to his surprise a shallow cut was drawn on his chest. "Wind chakra," he cursed. As a user of the untamed winds himself, he knew how dangerous this kunoichi could be. The kunoichi jumped back, and opened her mouth wide. Silvery powder was exhaled from her mouth. "Oh hell no, not again, K's no Cabe," he yelled, throwing up his wind barrier. The powder was destroyed upon contact, and Naruto jumped back to avoid any other nasty surprises. Unfortunately, he'd forgotten her follow-up, and he found himself once again stuck in silk. "It's over," the kunoichi began, "that was fun. But you really should surrender, I don't want to have to kill you," the mint-haired girl said darkly. The blonde wanderer closed his eyes and sheathed his sword, quite a challenge when you think about it. "Dying's the easy part," he said, an unreadable expression etched on his face. The green-haired ninja scowled, she was being made fun of. Well, she'd show him, she'd wipe that calm expression off his face. The mint-haired girl hated to kill, but this time she'd make an exception. "Remember that I gave you a chance to surrender," she muttered. And began charging her wakizashi with chakra. With a yell she rushed forward, intent on cleaving the blonde in half. Naruto dashed forward, meeting the kunoichi head-on. He was ending this. He phased through the kunoichi, mid-dash. In the fraction of a couple milliseconds he unsheathed his blade and spun around the green-haired girl. Here was one of his favorite techniques, by combining the sweeping blade and Tsuchiru Arashi. Naruto created a less deadly version of his Getsu Fuma. The girl was caught in a contained whirlwind, lifted off the ground and assaulted by sharp winds. The mint-haired kunoichi was tossed aside like a rag doll, landing in a heap some distance away from the blonde wanderer. Said wanderer smiled grimly, before shouldering his blade and continuing down the road. To a swordsman, or even a shinobi, there is no bigger insult than to be ignored. For that is to mean your opponent deems you unworthy to trade words, much less to finish off. Well, the teal-haired kunoichi didn't like that one bit. "You bastard, don't you ignore me," she roared, at his retreating form. Naruto continued forward without so much as a pause. He wasn't going to kill a woman. His honor might have left a long time ago, but he wasn't going to betray his nature. He wouldn't purposely kill a woman. Suddenly a huge spike of killing intent alerted Naruto. Behind him the kunoichi was surrounded by an ominous green aura. What the hell is that?" Naruto yelled. The teal-haired kunoichi was now focusing that aura into her blade. Die, you bastard. She roared, releasing a crescent wave of green chakra. Unlike Naruto's moonwind, this was a single serrated wave of chakra. Naruto cursed. He was caught up against a tree. Things looked bad. You see, his wind wall was released by unsheathing his sword in a wave-like motion. And as he was shouldering his blade, that option was lost to him. The sweeping blade was out as well. Naruto had designed the technique from studying Shisui's signature body flicker technique. Likewise, he wasn't teleporting, he was just engaging in high-speed movement. If there was nowhere dash to, he was trapped. As Naruto looked upon that crescent wave of death, he was reminded of the utter powerlessness he felt as he stared up at the faces of the council so long ago. Fuck you, old men, he roared. I am not going to die like a dog at your feet. He screamed at the oncoming wave of death. He raised his sword skyward and charged every last bit of chakra into his blade. The green crescent rushed straight for him. Naruto yelled with all his might. He yelled towards the heavens, he roared with all his might. As the green crescent of chakra made contact with his sword, he gave one last almighty roar, and the crescent was cut in half. The two parts of the crescent continued forward, slicing through half a dozen trees, but Naruto was unscathed. Panting heavily, Naruto gave one last look at the awestruck kunoichi. Before sheathing his blade and continuing to walk forward, HMPH, one step ahead of the past, he muttered as he walked off. Fu for her part could only look on in shock at the retreating figure of the man. No boy who had cleaved a wave of demonic chakra in half. What the hell is he? A few days after the incident with the teal-haired kunoichi, Naruto sat next to a fire on the bank of a lake. A few fish were propped up on sticks near the fire, and Naruto sat in deep thought. That blade of chakra, it wasn't normal. If I hadn't poured everything I had into my sword, I would have been sliced in half. A strange sound brought him out of his musings. It sounded like an animal growling. Standing up and fingering the handle of his blade, Naruto went to investigate. In some bushes surrounding his campsite, he came upon a comical sight. A familiar green head of hair sat moaning, the sound being revealed to be her empty stomach. Why didn't I grab some food before chasing after this Giyu? Oh, hello. She said awkwardly, orange eyes staring up at him bashfully. So you haven't been following me the past few days, have you? Naruto asked, shouldering his sheathed sword. The girl looked panicked before stuttering out. And no, of course not. We just happened to be traveling the same way as all. Yeah. Raising an eyebrow, really? I could swear you've been spying on me from a distance. Alright, so maybe I have been spying on you, she said. I wanted to talk to you, but I was afraid you'd be steamed over the whole me trying to mug you thing. Naruto sighed, before picking up the petite teen bridal style. She didn't like that one bit, that she didn't. Put me down this instant, you damned bastard. She roared. Now Naruto, for all that had changed, was still somewhat of a prankster. As you wish, he said, dropping her roughly onto the ground. Ow, not what I meant, you jerk. She yelled, punching Naruto in the stomach. And subsequently knocking the wind out of him. Not so tough without your sword, huh? Che, what the hell is it you want then, you damn midget? The irate Ronin yelled. Who the hell are you calling a midget, you wannabe samurai? She yelled back. Wannabe samurai? Take that back, damn you, Naruto roared. The teal-haired girl sighed. Look, I didn't come here to fight, I came to oh hey fish. She said, grabbing the roasted fish Naruto had been cooking and jamming them into her mouth. My dinner. Naruto moaned, lamenting his departed dinner. Oh hey, is that water? She asked, grabbing his bamboo flask and downing it in one shot. And promptly spitting it out. Gah, what the hell is that? It burns I tell you. She gasped. My sake. Naruto yelped, lamenting the loss of his beloved alcohol. That was sake? Aren't you my age? Why the hell are you drinking underage? She yelled, still sputtering from the sake. Naruto sighed. What the hell is it you wanted? He muttered, upset at the loss of his food and vice. PFFT. Wash da hell did you want, you damn bastard? The teal-haired girl hiccuped, stumbling around before being righted by the irate Ronin. Oh, this is just great, you can't hold your drink worth a damn, midget. Naruto said, while the person in question giggled nonsensically. Shish, not midget bastard, it's Fu. She hiccuped. Pleased to meet you, Fu, I'm Naruto. The blonde wanderer replied, ironically. At this point Fu was stumbling around and giggling uncontrollably. Haha, your name is Fishcake. She cackled, much to Naruto's ire. Damn it, it's written as Maelstrom not Fishcake. Naruto roared. Naruto's name was something of a soft spot for him. Granted, in a land where people were named after noodles, Fishcake didn't sound so bad. Naruto? The green-haired Kunoichi murmured, walking up to the aforementioned wanderer. I am sleepy, she said before falling over, knocking the blonde down with her. Goodnight, Fu murmured, before promptly falling asleep, on top of Naruto. Oh come on, Naruto roared. I bet Shisui's laughing his ass off wherever he is right now. Sighing, the blonde Ronin settled in to look up at the stars. It'd be a long night. When Fu woke up, she noticed three things. Her mouth was terribly dry, there was a throbbing on the side of her head, and she was lying on something. It was only after her groggy eyes focused did she find out that she wasn't sleeping on something, but rather someone. The blonde Ronin, whom she now knew to be called Naruto. Now usually under such circumstances one would freak out and throw a fit, however Fu wasn't all too normal. So she instead amused herself tracing a jagged scar that ran across the swordsman's upper chest. She quickly grew bored of this however, and deftly smacked him on the face. Wake up Fishcake, Fu yelled, smacking him once more. Naruto deftly opened his eyes and glared up at Fu. Do you have to be so damn loud this early in the morning? And get off me already, geez. Standing up AMD stretching, Fu was hit with the realization of something. Wait, have you been awake all night? She asked. Sleep is for the guiltless, Naruto said, rubbing his tired eyes. He'd been up all night planning, he'd yet to find out what this weird bipolar Kunoichi wanted with him. He needed to get to Wave and deliver the message to this Zabuza. Then he could look forward to a few days of rest off the road. Now he just needed to deal with Fu here. How'd you do it? Fu suddenly asked. Naruto was honestly confused. How'd I do what? Stay up all night? Fu had a look of longing on her face. How did you cut through my chakra blade? She asked, almost pleaded really. The wanderer thought for a moment before answering. I supercharged my sword with wind chakra. He said. This didn't seem to satisfy her. Tell me Naruto, do you know what a Jinchuriki is? She asked, her face hardening a little. Power of human sacrifice? Sorry, Fu was it? I can't say that I have. He replied, racking his memory for any mention of such a term. Wait, it had something to do with the 9 Biju, right? He said, remembering a story he had read as a child. Fu began to pace. A Jinchuriki, she said, is a person who contains within them one of the 9 Biju. They are created for the good of the ninja village, and are often treated poorly. That chakra blade you cleaved was made from pure demonic energy. Naruto sat with his eyes closed processing this information, then he suddenly opened his eye and turned to Fu. Wait, so there's a demon in here? He asked, poking her in the stomach. Fu giggled lightly, something like that. She said, swatting his hand away. Honestly, this swordsman intrigued her. He wore nothing to identify any allegiance, and his fighting style was so unique. She had never seen anything like it before, plus he had just casually shrugged off the matter of her condition. Wait, so if you wanted to you could have torn you limb from limb in a brutally inefficient manner, reveling in the carnage and your agonizing screams? Yeah, most likely, Fu said. Naruto laughed. Lucky for me you didn't use this demon of yours and I kicked your ass. He said, good-naturedly. Why, you, that was a fluke. I could kick your ass from here to Kumo. Fu said, jokingly. Naruto sighed. It had been quite a long time since he had held a conversation. The only words he ever spoke were questions pertaining to Itachi Uchiha and directions. I guess you could count the trash talk that came with fighting. But honestly, who would, as they'd always end up dead at the end of the battle. Part of him missed simply talking to another human being. He'd forgotten how nice it felt. Seeing as he hadn't had a friend since his days in Iron Country. Nonetheless, he had to get on with his impromptu mission. Say off Fu, it's been nice and all. But I really must be going, I have a mission to complete. Naruto said, sliding his sword into the loop on his rope sash. Fu looked slightly crestfallen before suddenly perking up. Let me come with you, Fishcake, she exclaimed. The blonde swordsman was rightfully confused. What's with the sudden change of heart? If I remember correctly, you tried to kill me and loot my corpse not too long ago. Naruto said. The mint-haired Kunoichi sighed. I'm sorry I tried to kill you and loot your corpse. But the fact is I'm really lonely, Naruto. I haven't spoken to anyone since I abandoned my village not to. At the very least let me accompany you until you finish your mission? Suddenly Fu began to rub her eyes and shed fake tears. P+Y you probably took advantage of me when I was asleep. I am probably pregnant with your child. Take responsibility Baka, she whimpered. Naruto stared at her with the oddest look, before unsheathing his sword and dropping to his knees. He pointed the sword to his stomach. Forgive me ancestors, he muttered. No Naruto I was joking don't commit seppuku. Fu yelled, grabbing the sword from him. The wanderer broke out into laughter. Good because I wasn't gonna do it, he said. Standing back up, he reholstered his sword and grabbed the messenger's bag. Then began to walk away much to Fu's amazement. You coming or not? Naruto yelled. That was the first time in a very long time that Naruto had made a joke. Granted it was a morbid one, but it was still a joke. Maybe a companion wouldn't be so bad. Where are we going by the way? On a road near the coast of the Land of Fire, two travelers were walking, bickering the whole way. But why won't you carry me? I am tired, and the seasickness still makes me a little queasy. The mint-haired kunoichi known as Fu exclaimed to her less than amused companion. Said companion could only rub the bridge of his nose exasperated. Instead of responding he merely smacked the green-haired girl lightly over the head. Just quit your complaining already, we're almost to that town. The blonde wanderer said. Honestly it's a miracle the two hadn't killed each other yet, they had hopped a boat from Mizu. And after dealing with Fu's seasickness and some pirates, the two now found themselves within the Land of Fire. Something that put Naruto on high alert. Lots of people wanted his head as a trophy here. Sometime later found Naruto trudging down a quaint path, boxed in by sunflowers. Fu was of course on his back. Said kunoichi grinned at him smugly. She'd discovered Naruto's weakness, crocodile tears. First body of water I find, I am dumping you in. The blonde swordsman growled. He received a laugh as Fu clicked her heels together like a horse rider would. You're a really bad husband, you know that? She said, pouting, to which Naruto could only raise an eyebrow. You've got quite the imagination ya know, whatever gave you the thought? He said, blowing a stray bang out of his face. The mint-haired kunoichi yawned loudly, straight into Naruto's ear to be exact. Well I've always wanted a proper surname, and I figured Uzumaki was as good as any, she said. Naruto chuckled at that. Trust me you don't want my surname, it attracts all kinds of trouble. He said, once more blowing that pesky bang out of his eyesight. Well what if I like trouble? You can't decide things like that yourself you know, she said burying her head into the crook of his neck. The wanderer was just about to say that in that case she couldn't flat out decide he was her husband, when a mischievous smirk found its way onto his face. Up ahead he noticed a river meandering along the side of the path. Putting on a burst of speed, Naruto raced down the path towards the river yelling the whole way. Naruto I swear if you dump me in that river I am divorcing you. Fu screamed, but her cries were for naught. She wasn't going down alone though. Before Naruto could throw her and she tackled the blonde, resulting in both of them enjoying an impromptu swim. They spent some time splashing each other before Naruto deemed they'd procrastinated enough, and the two set off down the road once more. Horrible husband, she muttered, punching the blonde on the arm. Hey, domestic violence, Naruto yelled, causing the both of them to break out laughing. He had to admit, traveling with someone else was much more enjoyable. The shout of, "Leaf Hurricane," sent everything to hell and then some quicker than Naruto could curse. Neji Hyuga was an angry teen, of that there was no question. A psychiatrist might say he would benefit from a few years of therapy, not Konoha however. Give him a headband and let him channel that rage at our enemies. Nonetheless Neji had issues, deep-rooted issues stemming from a home life that made abused kids jealous. He hated his family, or well part of his family, with a passion. None more so than his cousin Hinata. His hatred for his clan that had offered up his father as a sacrificial lamb manifested into a horrible hate for his cousin. In his eyes, it was her fault his father was dead. It was her fault for being so weak, completely overlooking the fact that she was a child at the time. And not even he could have defeated or stalled a full-grown shinobi at such an age. Anyways, Neji resolved to be the strongest shinobi to ever have come from the Hyuga clan, proving that the main branch were nothing when a cadet member could surpass them. He was a prodigy, a genius rarely seen. He was also somewhat of an asshole, but I digress. We find our cage bird walking the streets of a small coastal city on the eastern end of the Land of Fire with his two teammates. Neji was worried. Their Jonin-sensei, Maida Guy, had not yet revealed if they were to be selected to participate in the upcoming Chunin exams. As last year he deemed them not ready to participate. They needed to prove to him that they were more than ready to become Chunin. Hey, did you hear? That Rurouni was spotted not too far from here. Really? Boy, the things I could do with that bounty. Are you crazy, Kazuto? That's suicidal. But isn't he just a brat? That brat has killed countless bounty hunters, and even Anbu. I hear you won't cause trouble unless you attack him first though. Listening in on the conversation, Neji smirked. Here was his way to assure himself entry into the Chunin exams. Tenten, Lee, he said. We should search the area and see if we cannot find this missing nin. Neji said, to his teammates. Yosh, what a youthful idea, my eternal rival. We must apprehend this missing nin and show him our flames of youth. Said Rock Lee, in all his spandex and bowl-cut glory. The sole female of the trio looked slightly apprehensive. I don't know guys, maybe we should wait for Guy-sensei. She said, which caused Neji to scowl. Do not worry, Tenten. Fate has decreed this outlaw be brought to justice on this day. Or do you doubt our abilities that much? Neji said, a certain sharpness in his words. With that the three genin set out to capture one of Hai no Kuni's most infamous outlaws. They found him sometime around noon, playing in the river of all things. Neji, as self-declared leader of Team 9, proclaimed that they would lie in wait and then ambush the Ronin and his companion. I expected more, Neji muttered to his teammates from their hiding place in the trees. What do we know about this guy exactly? Tenten asked, after all information was a ninja's most valuable weapon. Yosh, Guy-sensei only said he was a most unyouthful missing nin from Konoha. Lee whispered furiously. Neji smirked, it matters not, he said, he cannot possibly defeat us. Arrogance is a crippling condition that afflicts 2 in every 12 genin per graduating class. It's either beaten out of them, or it leads them to an early grave. Neji was quite the shinobi, but in his haste to prove himself, he forgot a basic ninja rule. Never go in on an enemy you know little about. At last their target had stopped frolicking in the river, he and the petite kunoichi with him set off down the road. Lee go in, Neji said. He could see the flak jacket now. Hinata may or may not have been kissing his feet in his vision as well. Perhaps the most annoying thing Naruto hated about being a rogue nin was the never-ending stream of bounty hunters always on his tail. These ranged from village militia, cobbled together from farmers and merchants, to powerful shinobi he had to outwit or even flee from, but there was nothing he hated to run into more so than Konoha shinobi. The ninja of the hidden leaf were taught to put their utmost faith in teamwork and camaraderie. Likewise missing nin, and especially traitors, were detested. Any Konoha nin he encountered wanted one thing, his life or his freedom. Long ago, Naruto was terrified of Konoha ninja. They were all so much stronger than him, and only his ingenuity and thirst to avenge his dear brother kept him from returning home in a body bag or in chains. Naruto did not like to fight pointless battles, and for as much he's guilty of it. He hated to kill. He'd ended the lives of many people he might have called comrades in another life. And although the blood of many stained his blade, he told himself killing Shisui's murderer would make it better. Then he'd gladly walk up the executioner's scaffold, content in the knowledge that he was paying for the lives he'd taken but not Shisui's. Case in point, when Naruto heard the shout of Leaf Hurricane. He grabbed Fu and jumped back quite a few feet. A green spandex-wearing ninja flew from the cover of the trees like some sort of cannonball. Prepare to face Konoha's second noble green beast missing Nin-san. My name is Rock Lee. He said, flashing what Naruto would later find out was called a nice guy pose, in which one smiles fiercely and gives a thumbs up. I am getting real tired of you damn ninja ambushing me from the trees. Naruto yelled at no one in particular. Hey, I take offense to that fish cake, said Fu. Ignoring the mint-haired girl's indignation, Naruto focused upon the ninja in front of him. His bowl-shaped haircut reminded him of Maida Guy, a Junin he'd crossed paths with once before. The man's insane strength and speed had left Naruto bruised, bloodied, and desperate. He'd ended up jumping off a cliff to a river below out of sheer lack of options. Though he was stronger than before, he didn't fancy a fight with Maida Guy anytime soon. Naruto narrowed his blue eyes at the eccentric ninja. "The rest of you going to come and join the party anytime soon?" he said expectantly. From the trees jumped down two more shinobi, a long-haired ninja with pale eyes, and a kunoichi that had her hair tied back in buns. "Surrender yourself to your fate, missing nin," the former of the two said, in somewhat of a cynical manner. That caused Fu to erupt in a fit of giggles, which didn't seem to please their would-be capturer. Fu's laughter caused Naruto to smirk. "You must be very confident in your skill to come without your Junin sensei, that are very stupid," he said, fingering the sheath of his sword. The white-eyed genin scowled. The one known as Lee adopted a familiar stance. And the kunoichi, reminiscent of a panda, unsealed a katana. Naruto nodded towards Fu. "Deal with the green one, will you? I'm not the best at fighting taijutsu specialists." The petite kunoichi nodded, drawing her wakizashi. Turning to face his opponents, the blonde wanderer pulled out his flute. Sticking his sword into the ground, he leaned on the sheathed blade and began to play an old lullaby a widow from Suna had taught him. "You lecture us on overconfidence, yet you yourself are guilty of it," the pale-eyed cynic said. Naruto stopped his playing abruptly. "I am not an assassin. I don't take pride in the ability to end the lives of others," he muttered. This caused the white-eyed genin to smirk. "Do you honestly believe you can defeat us?" Naruto smiled grimly. "Stronger men than you have said the same thing," he muttered. Taking a drink of sake from his bamboo flask, he turned to the Konoha ninjas. "It's polite to introduce yourself, ya no," he said. "Hyuga Neji," the white-eyed cynic said coolly. "Tenten, just Tenten," said the kunoichi. "Yosh, you already know of me," the mini guy yelled. What followed next was a tense standoff. Naruto would not make the first move as that would go against his morals, flimsy as they may be. Fu, however, had no such morals, rushing forward sword drawn. She began to lead Lee away from the others, making sure he'd be too far away to come to his teammates' aid. The Konoha genin, however, were not to be counted out, as Neji motioned to his remaining teammate to engage. The kunoichi known as Tenten advanced on Naruto, causing the blonde to reholster his sword. Tenten swung her blade with more force than you'd think she could muster, however her only reward was a sharp ringing as her sword glanced off of Naruto's shoulder guard. Rolling to the side to avoid her follow-up strike, Naruto drew his own sword. "Those kata are so static you might as well be from Kumo," he mocked. This didn't amuse the kunoichi one bit. She rushed forward, her sword in position to cut Naruto's head clean off his shoulders. The wanderer dashed straight towards the oncoming blade, phasing from sight only to reappear in front of Neji. Tenten's sword shattered into a million pieces, just as Neji assaulted him with several chakra-powered strikes. His strikes hit nothing but air, however, as Naruto had dashed back to Tenten. "Do you know how expensive that sword was? It was an authentic Tetsu katana," Tenten yelled, unsealing a naginata. The irate kunoichi jabbed at Naruto. However, range is about the only thing a naginata has over a traditional sword. Her swings were telegraphed to the blonde swordsman, and under different circumstances he'd capitalize on that and end the fight. However, Neji's constant barrage of chakra-charged taijutsu kept him zoned. Dashing to avoid being bisected by the bladed spear, Naruto revealed an opening. That's when he remembered. Those eyes, I've seen them before. Byakugan. It was too late by then, however. Hake Rokuhuion Sho. The Konoha genin shouted as he assaulted Naruto with precise strikes of chakra hitting his tenketsu. Naruto was knocked to the ground. There was a searing pain in his chest and he was finding it hard to kneel. "It is done, restrain him, Tenten," said Neji, his voice heavy with smugness. Suddenly Naruto was enveloped in a blue aura of energy. It ruffled his clothes and hair much like a breeze would. "Che, you think this is the first time I've fought a Hyuga? It is pointless, your tenketsu have been clo-ah." He was cut off as the blonde Ronin had smacked him across the face with the back of his hand, the gauntlet-clad one. "I'll give you one last chance to turn around and forget this ever happened," Naruto muttered, his hand twitching over the guard of his sword. The blue aura began to move towards his blade, unsettling the two genin. Neji growled and motioned something to Tenten. The kunoichi placed two sealing scrolls onto the ground. "Take this, Soshoryu." In a puff of smoke she had risen into the air. From the scrolls she began to throw all manner of weapons at Naruto. "Pointless," K's no Cabe. Naruto yelled, throwing up his wind barrier. Tenten could only watch in horror as all her weapons were destroyed. Naruto dispersed the wind wall, it wasn't cheap in chakra after all. He noticed Fu dragging the unconscious body of Rock Lee over towards him, rubbing her cheek and wincing nonetheless. It was pointless to keep fighting. Sheathing his sword, he turned to the remaining Konoha genin. "We've got your comrade, why don't we just stop this pointless tiff?" Neji scowled fiercely. The Hyuga prodigy was used to steamrolling those of his age and position. Yet here was this Ronin, who appeared to be even younger than him, seemingly shrug off his very best. "What do we do now, Neji?" the panicked Kunoichi asked him. He could only glare at the blonde swordsman. Naruto ruffled his hair and sighed. "Listen, we'll let you go peacefully, just surrender. Trust me, older and stronger men than you have done so." This only served to further enrage the troubled teen. Neji rushed at Naruto with murder in his eyes. He hit nothing but air, however, as Naruto had simply dashed past. Neji lunged at the blonde once more, his chakra-powered fingertips aimed at his heart. Once more he hit nothing, and the blonde's lack of retaliation served to anger the Konoha shinobi even further. "Stop dodging, you coward. Dodging doesn't make me a coward, it makes me faster than you. Accept your fate," Neji scowled. Naruto met his scowl with a glare. "I've been running from fate my whole life. So why don't you make this easy for yourself? Grab your teammates and get the hell out of here before you force me to kill you." His words fell on deaf ears, however, as Neji would not accept defeat at the hands of someone who by all means should be far weaker than he. "Die, missing nin scum," he yelled as he once again tried to engage Naruto. His patience finally tried. Naruto met the Konoha genin head-on. The two traded blows, but so reliant was Neji on taijutsu, that he effectively had no way of countering a swordsman. Tenten was the weapons expert, and well, her style was cookie-cutter. Overpowering Neji, Naruto sent him flying back with a weak blast of wind. Not stopping there, he launched his moonwind at the airborne shinobi. Trapped in a vicious gale, Neji was assaulted by the razor-sharp winds. "I warned you," Naruto said solemnly. Blinking up to the trapped teen, he began slashing at him rapidly. Before he could deliver the final slash, however, Naruto was knocked out of the air by a fist that felt like solid steel. A green blur caught the heavily injured Neji. As Naruto recovered from that hell of a sucker punch, he was confronted by a tall, heavily muscled man in a green spandex suit. "Hello again, Naruto-kun," the man said. Maida Guy had arrived. Naruto swore vehemently. It seems his hunch about the Junin leading this particularly stubborn group of genin was right. "It has been quite a while, hasn't it, Guy? I see you're leading a genin team," Naruto said in mock pleasantries. "Indeed it has, Naruto-kun. We must have a drink sometime to catch up," Guy said, getting into a taijutsu stance. Naruto frowned. "Listen, Guy, we both know you're stronger than me. Even with Fu backing me, you'll win eventually. But I won't go quietly, I'll fight like a wounded devil." "I don't want to fight, Guy. Please, your student needs medical attention. If we fight, it will be a trade, your student's life for my capture. Can you stand those odds, Guy?" The aforementioned Junin furrowed his thick eyebrows in serious thought. "It's true that Neji is seriously injured, and Lee is out of commission. My student's safety comes." Naruto sighed in relief, as the noble green beast of Konoha summoned a turtle to use as a makeshift stretcher. Guy placed the injured Neji onto the less than amused turtle, then quicker than Naruto or Fu could react, the Junin blurred past and retrieved his lookalike student. As he motioned for Tenten to move along, he turned to the blonde wanderer and his bemused companion. "The next time we meet, we will cross blades, Naruto-kun. Aren't you a taijutsu specialist?" Guy smiles brightly. "Yes, but my iron will creates an unbreakable blade of youth." All right then, the next we meet we'll meet on the battlefield, Guy." As the spandex-wearing Junin turned to join his students, he imparted some words that would trouble the Ronin for some time. "You bear the weight of many sins, Naruto-kun, and unlike my weights they serve to hinder you. You act like someone far older than your youth betrays. Keep running, Naruto, but be careful where you tread." Naruto closed his eyes solemnly. "Send my regards to the old man." He received no response, and as he watched their fleeting backs retreat towards the setting sun, he was stricken with an odd thought. I wonder if things had gone differently. Could I have called that man my sensei? Naruto sighed, shouldering his sword as he does when he's troubled. He began to walk down the path. Fu yelling and running after him, worst honeymoon ever. Before I continue, dear reader, I feel it's necessary to elaborate. Konohagakure is a military dictatorship. In the same way all the other hidden villages are, albeit the most lax of the 5. When the Sandaime Hokage took control after the 4th's death, in the interest of unifying the masses in the aftermath of the Kyuubi's attack, the Professor, Sarutobi Hiruzen, formed a council made up of the clan heads, the leader of the merchant guild, his advisors, and the standing Anbu commander. The purpose of this council was to make note of the problems facing the village. They had very little political power, and the incident with Naruto was something of a one-time thing. The Hokage has a precarious position. For the people of the Hidden Leaf depend on him to be the voice of reason and righteousness. In a military dictatorship, the needs of many outweigh the wants of one. And though it broke the old man's heart, he could not sacrifice the stability of the village and risk a civil war over one boy. He apologized profusely to the graves of Minato and Kushina, but in the end he had to give Naruto up. It's funny in a morbid sort of way, with the systematic genocide of the Uchiha clan. Naruto would have gotten off scot-free. In the makeshift council room of the Hokage Tower, a meeting was underway. Guy's team had returned with the critically injured Neji. "This is getting to be quite the problem, Hokage-sama," said Nara Shikaku. Of course they were referring to the boy who had broken the previous standing record for youngest missing nin. The aged Hokage sighed deeply. "We've created this mess. And I now think we're hard-pressed to find a way to clean it up." Nakamura Hideaki, the current leader of the Merchant Guild, growled under his breath. "Why can't we simply send a platoon of Anbu to snuff out that damn brat? That boy is a slippery one. Those techniques of his work just as well outside of combat when it comes to evading capture. He's killed a total of 9 Konoha shinobi, and frankly this mess of ours is partly your fault, Nakamura." Inoichi Yamanaka muttered, "How is this at all my fault?" Ibiki Morino, head of the Torture and Interrogation Division, laughed loudly. "Who was it that egged that genin team on so long ago? You caused him to spill Konoha blood, and look what happened. Your own brother fell to his blade." "Shut your mouth, Morino." A loud smash was heard, as Hideaki's face met the ground. "Know your place, Nakamura, these are shinobi matters." Ibiki wasn't someone to piss off, and Hideaki was finding this out. "Enough, Ibiki, this is no time to be quarreling amongst ourselves," the Sandaime said, taking a long drag on his pipe. "Hiruzen, perhaps it is time to take action against Uzumaki." Elder Homura said expectantly. He had no grudge with the 9 tails, but a missing nin was still a missing nin. The wizened old man sat in deep thought. "Danzo, there is a matter that I feel we must discuss. Naruto reportedly uses a chakra manipulation technique, a futon 1. Much like your own invented windblade technique. Could you shed some light on the matter?" Shimura Danzo, the old warhawk of Konoha, unsheathed the Chikudo blade he used as a cane. Immediately 5 Anbu sprang to incapacitate the senior ninja, but the Sandaime waved them off. Channeling chakra to the blade, a blue aura quickly surrounded the ceremonial sword. Then, promptly re-sheathing the sword, Danzo held his hand in the standard grip of one-handed sword. A green oblong object roughly resembling a sword was formed in his hand. "Not too long after Uzumaki escaped, I discovered the scroll for my original technique was missing. It is simply impossible to think the boy could have taken it, as it was used in his breakout. There stands the possibility that he reverse-engineered it, but that is still quite improbable to achieve without the scroll." Something about Danzo's actions troubled Hiruzen. "Very well, moving on, Maida Guy has brought to light some troubling information. It appears Naruto has in his companionship the Jinchuriki of the 7-tailed is quite the unnerving thought. Has he discovered the existence of the Kyuubi? Is he seeking to gather the other containers? Whatever it may be, we must refocus our attempts at capturing or subduing him." With that the meeting is adjourned. As Danzo walks away, a smile grazes his lips. "The Nanabi, huh?" The boy has grown stronger. Through the mist of a silent cove, a small boat glided amidst the never-ending sea of white. A girl with bright green hair lay dipping her hand into the murky water. Turning to her companion, a blonde wearing a sedge hat, who currently stood, rowing slowly against the lazy tide. So you really can't tree climb or water walk? She asked expectantly. The blonde sighed, once again. Yes, I can't do those parlor tricks. Honestly, what was the point of being able to stick to a surface? Naruto knew there was some kind of chakra exercise involved, but he much preferred the ones he had been taught. Granted, it might be because of his bias and inherent contempt for all things ninja, but I digress. Returning to her examination of the brackish water, Fu quickly grew bored and regressed to her favorite pastime. Annoying Naruto, by the way, what's with the sedge hat? Are you trying to play badass Ronin? Naruto growled under his breath. I am the embodiment of badass Ronin, he said, to which his teal-haired companion could only laugh. Hey, you're about a 6. Naomi. I am the definition of super cool awesome Ronin, she said, splashing at the water for added effect. Now it was Naruto's turn to laugh mockingly. You're not even a Ronin is a masterless samurai, Naruto said, in between rowing motions. Fu however knew the perfect counter for his counter. Yeah, well, neither are you. You're not a masterless samurai, you're a Rururururo? A Ruroni, a wandering samurai, Naruto answered, still rowing in the endless white sea. It had been about a couple weeks since their encounter with the Konoha team, and Naruto was still shaken up somewhat. Konoha knew his immediate position, and they could capitalize on that easily. Add to the fact that he felt his skills were beginning to stagnate, as he'd been fighting mainly cannon fodder for a while now. His self-invented sword style, which had no formal name, worked by constantly adapting new kata and techniques into his arsenal. In this way he was not limited to one scroll or two, but could go as far as he wanted so long as he had the skill and ingenuity to design new techniques. His sweeping blade was a gap closer that allowed him to dodge around in the heat of battle. Shisui's prowess with the Shunshin technique inspired him to create it. The Tsuchiru Urashi was much more than a glorified chakra thrust, while most would call the technique asinine. As the user expends a great deal of chakra for a simple thrust, this works in Naruto's favor. Instead of dispersing, as is the case with most poorly chakra-controlled attacks, the leftover chakra collects in the blade, which Naruto can then use to launch gales or blades of wind and chakra. Over all the uses of the technique, his blade had become so saturated in wind chakra that it might as well be a literal blade of wind. Finally, there was the wind wall. Naruto wanted a defensive technique, and what's better than a barrier? This was the bane of many a shinobi, as a good chunk of ninjutsu is projectile in nature. The technique works in two ways. If the projectile is chakra-based, the wall disperses the chakra that makes up the attack, but if it's synthetic, it shreds it at almost a microscopic level. Funny really, as it serves no other purpose. A person or animal could walk through it with nothing to fear, except maybe getting your hair tousled up. Finally, there was the moon wind. As a student in Tetsu no Kuni, Naruto had observed a cherry blossom on a windy day. Try as it might, it could not escape the wind. Completely helpless, and though it was but a light breeze, at any moment it was liable to be torn to shreds by the tempestuous winds. It took many a year to perfect the technique, and yet more to apply it. The moon wind is a swirling gale of chakra that will trap the target in a violent swirl of razor-sharp winds. The follow-up had no name, for if it was successfully completed, would surely mean death for the enemy. 6 razor-sharp slashes, delivered so quickly, that they appear as a single serrated cut. Truly a diverse moveset. However, Naruto had begun to fear he was becoming much too predictable. By now the greater shinobi world was sure to know much more about him. Though he never searched for trouble, unless trouble wielded the Sharingan. He'd fought ninja from just about every village. Some, like Iwa, let him be, as he was an enemy of their enemy. Kumo and Suna wanted his Kenjutsu and Wind Wall respectively. He'd been offered everything from political asylum, to a harem of kunoichi. He had to admit, he strongly considered the asylum, as his wanderlust had waned years prior, yet it was like a drug. No matter how much he'd like to rest his weary feet and sheath his bloody sword, Shisui's murderer walked free, and he'd come no closer to finding true peace. Something, call it warrior's intuition, nagged at his unclear conscience. He felt something was coming, something to shake the rust from his blade. Something that would force him to once more adapt or perish. There was no question of the status of his mortality. It was not a question of if he'd die. It was a question of when he'd die. Naruto would just have to make sure he achieved his goals before then. And Naruto had a feeling the harbinger of this new catastrophe was him. Not too long after their run-in with Team Guy, the two travelers had come upon a decrepit-looking tunnel that led into a veritable maze of subterranean passageways. Unfortunately, these tunnels were not as abandoned as they had first thought. More than 100 shinobi, wearing odd music note headbands, inhabited the dark damp base of some sort. Evidently they didn't like uninvited guests, as the ninja attacked the pair. Splitting up so as to not be cornered like rats, Naruto cut his way deeper into the odd facility. Coming upon a weird research room of some sort, Naruto sifted through some of the data and schematics to be found. However, most of it was much too full of jargon for a simple swordsman to understand. He pocketed some of the more important-looking papers to hopefully sell to an information broker. In the center of the room stood an odd tank of some sort. What looked to be water filled the glass container. Suddenly a watery eye popped into existence within the tank. Naruto stared at it curiously, even daring to tap the glass. A toothy grin appeared next. "Let me out," it mouthed. Naruto did not know exactly what inhabited the glass tank, but he could empathize. He could understand wanting to be free, but to be trapped within a definite cage. Making up his mind, Naruto drew his sword and sliced the tank cleanly in two. A surge of water rushed out, but to his confusion nothing more. A tapping on his shoulder startled him, and he slashed, but hit empty air. Suddenly a hand emerged from the puddle of water, dragging him down to one knee. He punched at it, but it dispersed into water. An amused laugh rang throughout the room, and Naruto steeled his nerves for battle. A watery figure appeared before him, before solidifying into a boy about his age. White hair framed his pale face, and violet eyes leered at the blonde swordsman. He was lean and muscular, not unlike Naruto himself. A few jagged teeth resembling those of a shark poked their way out from under his lips, and he was also naked. "Thanks for freeing me, Blondie. One more day in there and I was sure I was gonna drown." He laughed harshly at what Naruto assumed to be an inside joke. "What's matter, not much of a talker?" the nude boy questioned, now unceremoniously stretching himself. "Whatcha staring at, huh? You one of those people?" he mocked, once more laughing at his own joke. "What is this place, and more so, what are you?" Naruto asked, fingers tensely gripping the tsuba of his sword. The odd boy scowled. "Welcome to hell, Blondie, I'm one of its many demons." Clearly he'd hit a nerve. Shaking his head, he turned to exit the room and regroup with Fu. Having a conversation with a weird naked guy didn't appeal much to him. Giving a haphazard wave, he readjusted his sword and prepared to march out. "Not so fast, Blondie." Turning to face the other boy again, Naruto once more gripped his sword. "That's quite the sword you got, to be able to cut through that glass. Must be sharp. Real sharp, I want it." Growling under his breath, Naruto unsheathed the sword and got into a ready stance. This only served to entice the white-haired boy further. As he whistled, and even licked his lips upon admiring the blade up close. "That's too much sword for you, Blondie. Why don't you hand it over to a real swordsman?" Dashing straight through the smug boy, Naruto heard a splash and was surprised to find himself wet. He had no time to ponder this, however, as bullets of solidified water flew from the nude boy's mouth straight for the defenseless blonde. Throwing up his wind barrier and promptly letting the bullets of water be dispersed. Naruto stared at the still smirking boy. "Just what the hell are you?" "Ooh, now I want that blade all the more. Think I'll call it the Namikaze, how's that sound?" Rushing once more at the arrogant boy, Naruto dashed through him once more. However, this time he twirled and unsheathed his blade mid-dash, creating a mini-moon wind. Once more he splashed through the boy's body, but the contained whirlwind did its job. When Naruto turned, there was nothing but more water, which now flooded the entire room. Satisfied, he marched his soggy sandals towards the door. As he turned, an oversized fist of water rocketed out of the puddle that made up the floor of the room, uppercutting the unsuspecting swordsman and sending him flying back. Quickly recovering, Naruto ricocheted off one of the walls. He jabbed at the damn boy, who now sported a giant fist of water. Once more his blade simply splashed through one end and out the other. "That's it, I'm tired of you flailing around. I'll kill you and use your sword to accomplish my dream." The boy scowled, summoning a sword made of water. He assumed a stance Naruto was all too familiar with. "Kiri?" Naruto asked, lowering his sword to perhaps settle things peacefully. Only to be met by a thrust meant to bisect him. Wouldn't that be a way to kick it? Naruto Uzumaki, split in half by a naked guy. Oh, so you know, huh? Good, knowing is half the battle. Hey, maybe if I'm feeling nice, I'll pass on the story of how I obtained that blade. Rescued from the hands of a second-rate swordsman. That was the last straw, sheathing his sword. Naruto instead formed the familiar wind blade he'd been using since he was a child. Rushing at the mildly surprised nudist, the two engaged in a fierce battle of elemental swords. Though it seemed his body was special somehow, the two swords themselves clashed like any others would. It seemed the two were evenly matched. Naruto was more agile and his strikes lightning quick. But the boy's water sword had more weight and power behind it. The blonde tried sending blades of wind at the smirking nudist, but they were just absorbed into his body. Just what the hell are you? Naruto asked once more. The white-haired stranger smiled his toothy smile. I told you I'm a demon. The two rushed each other once more, when a loud explosion caused both combatants to jump back. Through a giant hole in the wall stepped Fu. She wielded a broken wakizashi and looked about ready to murder anything that displeased her. The sight she beheld was quite a strange one. Naruto stood wielding his wind blade against a naked boy wielding a blade of water. Like what you see, the nude boy mocked, to which Fu stuck her tongue out. Yeah, that's a nice face. Be better if you wear on your knees though. He laughed once more at his own joke. The mint-haired Kunoichi snarled, and was about ready to join the fray as well, when the reason for her distress overwhelmed the need to murder a nudist. Naruto, we've gotta get out of here. There's a ton of those sound ninja coming this way. And some freaky abomination things too. Growling, he nonetheless dispersed his wind blade and followed his vertically challenged companion. Thanks for busting me out. Keep that blade nice and sharp for me, Blondie. 'Cause I'm coming for it, and your girlfriend too. The irritating boy shouted, as he raced off in a different direction than the two wanderers. Drawing his blade, Naruto was ready to fight through whatever amount of fodder it took to kill that bastard and use his skull as a cup. But Fu dragged him forward. The events of that day were a major wound on his pride, as he sat mulling it over once again. Naruto stared from beneath the sedge hat at his trowel-haired companion. She'd been oddly pensive for the last few days. He'd even jokingly remarked that she had indeed liked what she saw back at that bunker, to which he had been met with merciless jokes about them being married. Suffices to say, Naruto didn't fancy sleeping in a tree again because Fu refused to let him doze in peace. He was banished to the couch, apparently. As he cursed the old man, Naruto noticed they were heading into a mangrove forest. This meant the river they were floating down was close to meeting the sea, as the water was brackish. Which in turn meant they were close to Nami, as the mist gradually faded. Naruto gazed up at the sight of a massive bridge. Wow, remarked Fu, as their boat slowly made its way parallel to the bridge. It's not done though, Naruto said. Indeed, the bridge cut off a bit before connecting to the land of fire. The two passed the time marveling at the bridge, and coming up with names for it. Naruto said he'd name it the Great Shisui Bridge, while Fu opted for the humble moniker of the Great Fu Bridge. Sometime later found the two back on dry land. Naruto ditched his hat with the boat. The two then began walking towards the general direction of Nami that was inhabited by people. Uneasy peace plagued Naruto. The only thing of interest to be spoken of was their encounter with a rabbit. He didn't like it. The calm before the storm that always arrived was hellish. Nonetheless, they made it to the settlement of Wave in the late afternoon. As they walked through the small town, Naruto was disgusted. Vagrants and beggars lined the streets, small children ran about pleading for food. The marketplace was devoid of the bustle one would expect to find. All manner of thugs and shady-looking people stomped through the streets like they owned them. There was a feeling of disparity and hopelessness. Well, what could have happened here? Fu asked rhetorically. Naruto sniffed disdainfully. Smells like corruption. A daimyo, town official, shady merchant, I don't know. But something's corrupt here. It was never like this the last I was here. A young boy of maybe 7 ran up to them. Please, it's my brother, he's dying, you have to help. He sniffled, rubbing at his eyes in the way boys do to refuse to show tears. Fu smiled and motioned for the boy to lead the way, but Naruto held her back. Reaching into the no-worn bag, Naruto pulled out a few coins and tossed them to the confused boy. Nice performance, here's a tip though. He motioned to his sword, don't pick someone who's got one of these as a mark. A few boys with pipes probably won't do much to stop them from cutting off your hand, now run along scamp. The boy paled and nodded his head, then quickly ran off. No doubt to spread the advice he'd been given. Fu stood shocked at what had transpired, a boy of that age turned to thieving. Just how bad was the situation here? Come on, sooner I find Zabuza sooner we leave this damned place, Naruto muttered. Don't you care? We had to do something, look at those kids. This is no environment for a child. The conditions in Wave hit very close to home for Fu, who herself was orphaned at a young age. However, she was a Jinchuriki, so at the least she was cared for, no matter how minimally. Naruto frowned. What do you want me to do, Fu? I'm just a Ronin, there's nothing we can do. There's no one to kill to solve this problem. Money turns the world, sweetie, and money's the only thing that will help these people. The teal-haired Kunoichi stared at the ground, something about what Naruto had said cut her deeply. A few stray tears leaked from her orange eyes. Noticing this, Naruto sighed, and awkwardly wrapped her in a side hug. To her immense surprise, she started crying even more, sobbing even. Fu, I'm sorry. I wish I could do something just as much as you do. But I'm just one person. Just one person, he repeated. I'm just looking for a road home, he murmured softly. Hugging him tightly, Fu dried her eyes on what remained of his kimono. No, it's not that, it's just. She began to tear up again. Looking up at the sky and noticing the ever-increasing cloud coverage, Naruto motioned for Fu to follow him. It looks like rain, he murmured. We should find an inn. The teal-haired Kunoichi nods, and the two walked off in silence. The passage of time found the two still in silence. A light drizzle falls outside. But the two are safe enough inside the heavily overcharged inn room. Inflation is the bane of everyone, even ninja and samurai. Naruto sits polishing his sword, his tattered kimono-turned scarf lies drying on a small table. His teal-haired companion lies atop a futon, deep in thought. Say fish cake, she says, finally breaking the silence. I've been meaning to ask you. Pausing from caring for his tempered soul, he nods to her. Yeah, go on. Back with those Konoha genin, that Hyuga boy. He landed those 64 hits dead on, but you just shook it off. How'd you pull that off? She asked, curious desire to know, replacing her somber mood. Going back to polishing his sword, Naruto simply closed his eyes. Flow, he says. Flow? What the hell is that? Propping his blade against the small table, he motions for her to come closer. When she obliges, he holds out his hand. Holding out his hand and motioning for her to grab it, he takes her petite hand into his. Instantly Fu feels a rush of wind as a blue aura dissipates around them. That's flow, Naruto says. Fu stares at him quizzically, grabbing his hand once more. However, nothing happens this time. What the hell is flow, Naruto? Laughing at her irritation, Naruto receives a smack on his bare chest as compensation. Alright, flow is what I call it. But it's just a shield of wind chakra, it's like breathing by now. Every time a step, when I run, when I dash. I am generating a tiny bit of wind chakra around me when enough collects. I stop, and the next time I take a big hit. The wind chakra buffers some of the damage. Nodding to show recognition, Fu presses this. Wow, that sounds useful. You think I could learn that technique? Well, it's really chakra heavy, you know. Fu smiles at this. I'm a Jinchuriki. Big chakra reserves are part of the package. Sighing, Naruto caves. Alright, I guess I could teach you, but only after we find Zabuza. Grinning, Fu begins to fist pump. However, this only serves to make her first problem, the one she'd been mulling over, more apparent. I am hungry, she proclaims. Naruto begins to stand up, but she waves him off. You wait here. I'll bring you something, alright? Seeing no problem with this, Naruto hands her his wallet and an umbrella. Don't take too long, and definitely don't draw attention to yourself. He says, to which she nods enthusiastically. See you in a bit, fishcake. Naruto was worried. It had now been quite a while since Fu had gone to procure something to eat. The Ronin knew she was a competent kunoichi, and he worried more for anyone that tried to pull something on her. But that didn't change the fact it simply does not take this long to find some food. Sighing, Naruto slipped on his blue kimono-turned scarf, and adjusted his sword firmly to his belt. He searched up and down the gloomy town, but not one mint hair was found. He asked around, but people shied away from him at a glance of his sword. Naruto was begging to grow frustrated, the light rain didn't help his mood. Naruto hated the rain, the overcast gray sky, the smell of wet dirt, the dim light. Like the very heavens were crying. Nonetheless he trudged on. Finally, from a distance he spotted the red umbrella he had given her some time prior. She was making her way towards the unfinished bridge. Running after, Naruto lost sight of the mint-haired girl to the damnable mist. Making his way along the stone bridge, the mist finally lessened to reveal Fu staring out onto the mist-covered bay. "There you are. Damn it, Fu, what are you doing up here?" he shouted at her. When she noticed him, she smiled and waved him over. Instead of responding, she simply continued staring into the white mess that was Nami no Kuni. Resigning himself to silence, he simply stared as well, taking the umbrella from her hands and using his added height to shield them both. "Why's the world so harsh, Naruto?" she murmured softly. Naruto simply stared, any profound answer lost to him at the moment. "Why do we have to fight? Why is this a shinobi world, and not just the world?" Naruto closed his eyes, as he does when he thinks of Shisui. "My brother once told me the world is like this, because the world doesn't want you to be a murderer. To be a ninja, the world is harsh because the world is caring." The teal-haired Kunoichi mimicked him, closing her own eyes and leaning against the blonde swordsman. "This is the first time I've heard you talk of a brother." The blonde Ronin sighs, "I had a brother once. I had lots of things once." Naruto. As he turns to petite Kunoichi, Naruto is shocked beyond belief when she reaches up to press her lips to his. The sensation is one Naruto has never experienced. He lacked a mother's embrace as a child, and the road he walked was a bloody one that led to two destinations: redemption and death. A swishing sound is heard as a blue aura ruffles the two teens' hair. The blonde is completely drunk on this sensation, the feeling in his chest. The feeling of her soft lips on his. No sake could compare. He had absolutely no idea what the hell was going on, but he didn't care. Which made it all the more surprising when a searing pain exploded in his chest. He pushed the petite Kunoichi away to reveal a dagger, a tanto blade embedded near hilt deep in his chest. An odd yellow liquid clung to the blade. Naruto wanted to scream out in pain. But when he opened his mouth, no sound came out. He stumbled back, as Fu slowly walked towards him. He reached to unsheath his sword, but his shaky hands refused. His vision began to blur, and he could feel her slowly remove the blade from his hands. Followed by the sheath. "I'm sorry," she whispers in his ear. Then deftly kicks him off of the bridge. Picking up the discarded umbrella, she opens it as a downpour hits. Slowly walking down the bridge, umbrella in one hand and sword in the other. She spares one last look at the mist-covered bay. As Naruto plummets off the bridge, all he can see is white. Eventually he feels himself hit the icy waters below. As he sinks through the deep blue waters of Nami no Kuni, he pleads. "Shisui. Nanami. I am sorry." In a deserted dojo somewhere in Iron Country, a young boy with blonde hair stands hammering at a wooden post with a baldon. He grips the wooden sword, stares at the post, and lunges. As he slashes, his worn sandals finally give out, sending him tumbling to the ground. Swearing and groaning, the boy sits down to repair his sandal for what seems the umpteenth time. He'd show them all. He'd perfect his technique and surpass all of those who laughed at him. Who called him Roroni no Baka, who belittled his desire to learn the way of the sword. If he could not be a samurai, then he'd be a Roroni. It beat being a ninja. Returning to his training, the blonde shivered as a cold northern ly wind assaulted him. His cheap hakama and gi offered little protection against the cold weather of Iron Country. Steeling himself, the young boy once more returned to his mad assault on the training post. From afar a young girl with long pink hair stood watching him curiously. She'd heard about the outsider who'd come to Tetsu to learn to be a samurai. She'd been watching him for a while now, and was surprised at how hard he pushed himself. She felt bad for the blonde. He hadn't the advantage of belonging to a clan of samurai. All he had was the recommendation of Lord Mifune. Watching him shiver and sneeze, she could stand it no longer. Quietly walking up behind him, she removed the scarf that protected her from the northern chill. Wrapping it around the surprised boy. "Here, you look cold." she said sweetly. The blonde turned to her and promptly scowled. The pink-haired girl in front of him was dressed in a fine silk kimono. Ribbons adorned her long hair, and she gave off the impression of nobility. He tore the scarf from his neck. I don't need your pity. The young girl looked upset, but simply smiled, instead going over to the dojo to continue observing him. The blonde boy felt odd practicing while being watched, especially by what he assumed to be a spoiled noble girl. But nonetheless he continued. For some time longer he lunged at the post again and again. All the while the girl observed him quietly. The last rays of the setting sun shone on the young boy's back as he leaned on his wooden sword, gasping for breath. He turned to the vacant dojo to find that the pinkette was gone. The evening chill assaulted him as he prepared to return to his abode, noticing the discarded scarf. He sighed, before swallowing his pride and wrapping it around his neck. It was warm. Darkness, soul-crushing darkness surrounded Naruto. He felt weightless, as if he was floating through a mass of indistinguishable substance. A sudden jolt assaulted him, and he found himself on solid ground. He opened his weary eyes to find he lay on the tatami floor of some kind of building. Rice paper walls boxed him into a room of sizable dimensions, devoid of anything but the lone wanderer. He stared down at himself. The place where she had stabbed him was nothing but another part of his tanned chest. Standing, his shaky legs dragged him towards one of the inconspicuous walls. Grabbing the indiscriminate handle that operated the sliding door, he slid it aside unceremoniously. What he saw brought him to his knees in awe. Before him stood a forest of sakura trees as far as his eyes could see. Gentle winds blew the tiny pink petals like a veritable pink blizzard. And the smell, the sweet smell that wafted into his nose, was one of heaven. The voice of reason that screamed that it was summer, and therefore impossible for him to be gazing at cherry blossoms, fell on deaf ears. Where am I? The sound of a door being slid open was lost to the awestruck wanderer, his reason clouded by the amazing sight his eyes beheld with the same light as a man dying of thirst would gaze at an oasis. Beautiful, isn't it? A voice from behind him said, startling the blonde wanderer into turning abruptly. He gazed at the appearance of a woman, who was more like a goddess. Long red hair framed her slightly chubby face, flowing down behind the silky white kimono she wore. Her violet eyes shined brightly upon the vagrant swordsman, in a way he was unaccustomed to. And whisker marks, not unlike his own, adorned her porcelain face. The woman's appearance further emphasized Naruto's morbid thought. Am I dead? The woman smiled brightly, walking towards the awestruck wanderer, who stumbled back in surprise. Who are you? Where am I? Naruto asked, reason beginning find its way back to him. Half-formed memories of the events of before assaulted his unclear conscience. I asked who you were. He snapped, his shaky hands reaching for a non-existent sword. The red-haired goddess, as Naruto had reasoned, stopped abruptly before him, simply staring down at him with a loving smile. I wouldn't expect you to remember me. It's been nearly 14 years since we've last seen each other. The magnitude of her words eluded the blonde. His age was but a number. For he'd done things and seen sights unknown to many twice his age. What are you talking about? Make sense. He growled, attempting to summon his blade of wind. But nothing came. Absolute shock ran its way through the blonde, as the woman wrapped him a tender hug. He began shaking uncontrollably, trying to push her away. But his arms refused, his instincts dulled. Something in the very recesses of his mind whispered in his ear, that here was a being from which cruelty could not radiate. My little maelstrom, she mumbled softly. Who are you? Who are you? He pleaded, now finding an ache in his chest. Memories of old and new flashed within his unclear conscience. The woman said nothing, content in hugging him and smiling. Oh my little Naru-kun, I'm your mother. She said softly, never once letting go of his shaking figure. The wind, the tempestuous wind, carries with it many doubts and many worries. Paranoia is a blade that must always be kept sharp. But Naruto cared little at the moment. He shuddered violently. Wrapping his arms around the red-haired woman, he began to sob. He was not a swordsman, he was not a wanderer, he was not a murderer. For at the moment the weight of the world and his blade vanished, and he was just a scared boy crying into his mother's embrace. He was dead, the thought raced in and out of his mind. He was dead, and the goddess before him was the mother he'd longed for as a child. Welcoming him to the afterlife, it surprised him how little his fate bothered him. A part of him welcomed death, for if its embrace was as sweet as this, then he'd have no complaints. Mama, he shuddered. As if knowing his thoughts, the woman shook her head lightly. She hugged him all the more tightly. You have to go back, Naruto-kun, you aren't dead, she said, her voice like a one-man choir to the emotional blonde. Naruto shook his head fiercely. Please mama, don't make me go back. I want to stay here with you. I want to see Shisui-ni again. I don't want to run anymore, he sobbed. The woman's smile dulled, and she let him cry away his frustrations. You have to go back, Naruto-kun, it isn't your time. You've too much left undone, she said, taking his shaky hand and leading him to the adjacent door. Pointing towards a path through the sakura trees, she hugged him once more. Drying his eyes, Naruto hugged the woman fiercely. Please, come with me until I have to return, he pleaded. But the woman shook her head softly. I cannot leave this place, Naruto-kun, she gestured to the building. Fresh tears threatened to spill from his eyes, but he only nodded softly. Stepping outside into the blizzard of cherry blossoms, he felt the weight of his non-existent blade return once more. When your weary feet fail you, know that you'll always find a place to rest here, Naruto-kun. The woman called out to him, turning one final time to gaze at the image of his waving mother. Naruto walked through the fluttering pink petals. As she watched his retreating form, his mother smirks. 9 blood-red tails swish behind her as she laughs softly. Everything is pain, you could say it's a metaphor of life. But for Naruto, at the moment all he feels is white-hot jolts of pain. His eyes are blurry, and he feels wet. But the only notion that he's left the gentle embrace of his mother is the searing pain of mortality. Through the maddening pain, an odd thought is formed. I feel cold, he thinks, as his vision clears enough to notice he's sprawled out on a beach. Groaning, he attempts to stand up. White flashes appear in his V-zone, and he muffles his screams. He'd forgotten, there was something on that knife. Something that was affecting his usually rapid healing. Dragging himself towards the cover of a few trees, Naruto lays against the trunk of a tree. Digesting the information he'd learned, Naruto was at a loss as to how to proceed. His sword. Where was his very soul? Holding out his hand, he attempts to form a blade of wind. It sputters and threatens to form, but then dissipates. Seems that substance was no ordinary poison. He'd have to plan carefully, as much as he'd love to visit that sweet-smelling piece of heaven again. He had a feeling his mother wouldn't look too kindly on him dying every other day. Still he couldn't contain his excitement, his mother had loved him. And if not for that thrice-damned Kyuubi, he'd probably have had a fairly nice life. Many questions remained, the identity of both his parents for one. They'd come with time, more pressing matters concerned him. Then there was Fu. The blonde wanderer shook his head, there was nothing to be done about it. The mint-haired kunoichi would have to die, he couldn't forgive this. The attempt on his life was one thing, and he didn't know if this was always her endgame. Frankly, he didn't care, the way she went about it. Like a ninja, he spat. It was idiotic to think any cutthroat shinobi could be called a friend. A comrade, even an ally, but not a friend. He runs his finger over his lips and scowls. The sound of footsteps on dried leaves alerts him. Naruto is in no condition to fight. He can only hope whoever's making their way towards him isn't a hostile. As he notices that his blonde hair covers his face, his top knot having been undone. For the first time does Naruto wish he knew the henge technique. Sigh, why couldn't I stay dead? Haruno Sakura trudged through the misty forests of Wave. The Konoha Kunoichi sighed as she thought once more of her unrequited love. Uchiha Sasuke, no matter what she did, he wouldn't give her the time of day. She had been the first to master tree climbing. Not so much as a glance from Sasuke though, then there was Sai's infuriating comments. Honestly, that boy was creepy, with his mechanical smile and odd comments. The pink-haired girl kicked a stray leaf. She'd gone on a walk to re-evaluate her career choice. As the town depressed her, she strolled down one of the narrow beaches instead. Sakura wished she could contribute more to her team, but she was from a civilian family, she didn't have the leg up that Sasuke had. And even Sai came from some sort of third-party program. At the moment the pinkette was feeling just a bit above useless. The sound of swearing alerted her to something out of the ordinary. Ahead she noticed a figure lying against the base of a tree. Ducking behind another tree, Sakura stared at the obviously male figure. A boy about her age, spiky blonde hair framed his face. His blue clothes were worn and ragged, and she didn't know if she'd consider that shawl a top. The pink cat found herself lingering on his slim chest, and abruptly gasped. An ugly gash on the left side of his chest bled profusely, and she wondered if he was dead. Sigh, why couldn't I stay dead? She heard him mutter. Making up her mind, the kunoichi ran over to the injured blonde determined to not be useless. Are you alright? She asked shyly, her teenage girl mentality deciding to focus on his bare chest and not the horrid wound on said chest. The blonde vagrant groaned, does it look like I'm alright? He wanted to shout at the person in front of him, but the pain in his side kept his eyes clenched. Opening his eyes, his bleary V-zone took in the sight of bright pink hair. Nanami? He murmured, memories of cherry blossoms assaulting his addled mind. Sakura shook her head, he seemed delirious. The shinobi code would say to give him a mercy death, not that she could stomach even the thought of taking a life. Reaching into her pouch, she pulled out a roll of bandages. This might hurt a bit, she whispered. Nanami? The delirious swordsman said once more, as the pink cat began gingerly wrapping his side. Nana, oh dear Kami, why? I see demons. Shisui nitrogen monoiodide, I am sorry. It was me, who stole your soba. He screamed unintelligibly, making the poor girl flinch. Nonetheless, she finished wrapping his wound, surprised at how little the blood flowing out of his side bothered her. Sakura was equally surprised when he remained conscious afterwards. The mental fortitude required for that she couldn't begin to imagine. I'm sorry, I don't have anything for the pain, she said, genuinely sympathetic. Nanami? He murmured once more, weakly raising his hand towards her face. Now Sakura was somewhat ticked off. Who the hell was Nanami, and why was this poor bastard confusing her with said person? Briefly she entertained a fantasy of a rogue nin who ran from his past and his problems, who was saved by a kind kunoichi who reminded him of a past love. Then just as quickly shook her head, she really should stop reading those trashy romance novels. My name is Sakura, Haruno Sakura. The blonde wanderer looked up wearily. Nanami? Sakura groaned, leaving the delirious blonde with a ration bar and some soldier pills. She prepared to return to the old man's house. Don't die, alright? I'll come back when I can. Nanami? What followed was an odd sort of dependence. The wound on Naruto's chest absolutely refused to heal, and he could not summon any sustainable chakra. The pink-haired kunoichi snuck away once a day to change his bandages, and try to weasel information out of him. She'd been extremely unsuccessful, as even threatening to leave him to bleed out yielded very little. Naruto knew he should be extremely cautious around the kunoichi, whom he learned to be a genin from Konoha. His recent betrayal at the hands of the Seven Tails Jinchuriki should have also weighed into his decision-making. But he just couldn't bring himself to do anything to the pink-haired girl. She reminded him too much of Nanami. Mostly in appearance, as the Konoha genin used him as something of a makeshift therapist. Her bemoaning over the last Uchiha grew on his nerves quite quickly, but he didn't have it in him to be any sort of cruel to her. Her being here worried the Roroni. She talked at length about a Kakashi-sensei. Hitaki Kakashi, the copy ninja. One of the Leaf's heaviest hitters, up there with Guy and chain-smokin' Sarutobi Asuma. The question at hand, what was their purpose? Were they hunting him? Not likely, that or Sakura was an utterly incompetent ninja. She did seem to treat him like a civilian, an ever so apparent smugness in her tone when talking to him. She constantly asked for his name and the origin of the wound. To her irritation, he always answered with, just a wanderer. And of course, a memento from the endless road. Still, Naruto was thankful she never stayed all too long. Every time he'd see her face, the memories of cherry blossoms he'd worked so hard to repress would come flooding back. The days were monotonous, and he lost track of exactly how much time had passed. There came a day when he could move without reopening his wound, stressing over what to do about Sakura. He eventually sighed it all off. She was not Nanami. And dragging out their acquaintance was cruel to the both of them. They were enemies, give or take the cherry blossoms. Sakura made her way through the brush once more. She was going to tend to her new friend, Mr. Wanderer. Or that's at least what she called him, ironically. It was a bit strange to call someone her age Mr., but he'd give her no name. With all his half-answers and aloofness, the blonde certainly irritated her at times. Still, it was nice not to be shrugged off or called ugly by a boy her age. There was so many mysteries surrounding the blonde teen. Who was he? How did he get that horrible wound? Who the hell was Nanami? That was another thing, this Nanami person. When he'd regained his reason, she'd asked, among other things. He'd simply said she reminded him of a very dear friend. He'd say no more, just a very dear friend who shared her odd hair color. Another thing about the blonde boy, he'd listen to anything and everything she had to say. It was absolutely foolish to think she alone could care for him, but she wanted to prove her worth. Plus, the time spent bandaging his wound really gave her an appreciation for the clerical shinobi duties. She'd even asked Kakashi-sensei his opinion on medic nin, to which he replied they were an absolute crucial part of assault squads. But he wished they would wear outfits. Sakura was gaining and losing respect for that man by the day. Besides using him as an extremely anatomically correct dummy, the pinkette enjoyed simply talking to the blonde vagabond. His overly calm demeanor and the way he'd often stare at her profoundly probably helped as well. All in all, Sakura enjoyed her secret friend. It was nice to be complimented and not belittled. She'd take the fact that he'd sometimes call her Nanami at face value. It came as quite the surprise when she discovered he'd disappeared. Wanderer. "Oh, come out wherever you are," she said, believing he was simply playing a trick on her. Out of the corner of her emerald eye, she noticed a scroll nestled between the place he'd usually doze. Quickly snatching it, she opened it and began to read. "Thanks for the memories, sorry for the trouble. Maybe we'll meet again someday. The road of life goes many directions after all. Be wary of the Uchiha boy. He sounds like an Avenger, and an Avenger will sell his own soul to further his goals. Don't fret over everything you can't do, instead focus on what you can do. After all, I doubt Sasuke-kun could have patched me up as well as you did. Uzumaki Naruto, a wanderer." Sakura frowned. He'd left without even bothering to say goodbye. That reckless fool probably wasn't even fully healed yet, but she couldn't help but smile a little. Uzumaki Naruto. That name sounded oddly familiar. Sakura pocketed the scroll. She'd embellish some things. Maybe romanticize some others, but she'd have something to rub in Ino Pig's face, that's for sure. Naruto gingerly made his way through the settlement of Wave. He felt exposed and weak, and it wasn't solely because of the poison and wound. He had absolutely no taijutsu to speak of, besides brawling, and even that was pathetic against real threats. With neither his sword or windblade at his disposal. As injured as he was, even a common thug was bad news to him. A couple shifty-eyed gentlemen had already been sizing him up. Naruto cursed. With his hair down, he looked like just another vagrant. He'd have to hope his steely glare was enough to discourage anyone from taking a shot at him. Up ahead, Naruto noticed his destination, a weathered building with the faded image of a shuriken painted on the side. The kanji read, "Hiko's Shinobi Supplies." Probably made during one of the Shinobi World Wars, when Wave served an important purpose as a neutral zone between Konoha and Kiri, depending on the war. The store probably didn't get too much business nowadays, after Suna had slaughtered countless civilians and many more died in the resulting battles to reclaim the island. The resulting Cage Summit decreed that no combat mission was to be chartered to the Land of Waves. Of course, this had gone to hell in the Third Shinobi World War. Konoha declared the nation a protectorate. Any aggressive movement into Wave was to be met with hostility from the Land of Fire. But enough about history, all of this was in the academy books. Naruto opened the weathered door, and promptly walked into the store. What awaited him inside was a business in absolute disarray. Broken glass littered the floor, and any resemblance of order was non-existent. A resounding crash is heard. Please, you've taken what you feel is enough for tax. I've nothing left, just please leave me be." An older man cowered behind a counter. He was unhealthily thin. His graying black hair was tousled up, as if he'd been pulling on it in frustration. "Oji-san, I'm not here looking for trouble, I need a sword," the wanderer said softly. Evidently the state of the island nation was beyond dire. The frightened man looked up hopefully. He took in his appearance. Naruto got the feeling he was being scrutinized. He lingered on the tightly wrapped portion of his chest. "I am very sorry, young man, I have nothing to sell you," he said, his dull brown eyes staring towards the ground in something Naruto took as shame of a sort. Naruto sighed. What the hell is wrong with this place? Is it your daimyo? Some politician? Why's this town so damn lifeless and drab? The aged merchant said nothing, simply sighing and shaking his head. Gato, he murmured, almost inaudibly. What exactly is a gato? The blonde Roroni asked, his interest piqued. Once more he was met with stony silence, the merchant retreating to a back storeroom. Reemerging, he tossed a simple bakuto to the reasonably confused blonde. Get out of my store, get out of this town too, if you can, he said, ominously. Examining the wooden practice sword, Naruto bowed respectfully. Then promptly walked back into the gloom that was Wave. Upon exiting, he slipped the bakuto into the loop on his rope sash. Instantly he felt 1,000 times more secure, a good thing too. For none too soon did a couple good-for-nothing swagger over to him. Never seen you round these parts, you got any money for charity, pretty boy? He decided to play along. Depends, is it tax deductible? He muttered. Tax deducta, what's it? The bulkier of the two grunted. The slimmer one growled, just give us your money slick, and no one gets hurt, he said, pulling out a knife for good measure. All he had time to see was a blurring brown object, as Naruto slashed his neck. Lacking a killing edge, the would-be mugger crumpled to the ground in a heap. His companion stared for a bit, as if not believing what had just happened. Finally he roared, and threw a fist at the injured Roroni. A few stabs left him in the same condition. Naruto panted heavily, the wound on his side was going to be the death of him. Taking a deep breath, he trudged onward towards his next destination. The daimyo's palace. From an alley, a toothy grin goes unnoticed. In a drab gray room, a girl with green hair sits straddling a sheathed katana. It was hard to believe it had already been a week since she had murdered the first real friend she'd ever made. A leather-bound journal sits open in front of her, and an empty bamboo flask lays off to the side. She'd drunk sake again, the bitter liquid had worked its magic, making her sputter and gag, but numbing the shame and overwhelming emptiness. Why'd you have to be an outlaw fishcake? Why couldn't you have just been a wanderer like you said? She hiccuped, gripping the blade all the more tightly. Naruto had been first at many of the mint-haired kunoichi's milestones. Her first real friend, the first person to ever truly see her as human. Her first husband, she laughed morbidly. The alcohol working its magic, and her first kiss. But he was dead, she had killed him. And she spat on the name of his grave by taking his sword, but what could she do? Her brother had told her it would be a waste to let such a blade fall to the bottom of the ocean. And she'd listened, she'd kill her first friend for her Ni-san. The person that took her in, that helped her escape Taki. Speak of the devil, and he shall come. For a knocking at her door startled the inebriated kunoichi. The door was opened, and in walked a particularly effeminate ninja. His dark green hair framed his slightly androgynous face. He wore the standard Taki vest, and on his back was strapped a combat umbrella. He strutted into the room, a certain smugness to his step. "Ah, Fu-chan, you haven't been crying again, have you?" he said, his voice silky and soothing. Here was a man who could console the family of the person he's murdered. The teal-haired kunoichi stood up, or tried to, stumbling back in a haze. "I wasn't crying aoi ni-shan," she hiccuped. The man chuckled. "Then you've been drinking that wanderer's sake, huh?" "Hish namsh natu," she growled, fingering the sheath of the sword like the blonde Roroni would often do. The man known as Aoi blinked, then promptly began laughing. "Ah, Fu-chan's got a crush on a dead man," he mocked, grabbing the sword from the emotional girl. He unsheathes the sword and examines it with a calculating eye. "A fine sword. But nothing compared to my blade," he roars, tapping at an odd cylinder strapped to his waist. "Naruto. I am sleepy," the kunoichi mutters. The sake doing its job and knocking her out faster than a right-hook frock made a guy. The green-haired missing nin sighs, tossing the katana to the floor. A sharp ring resounds throughout the room as the sword skids towards the petite kunoichi, who subconsciously grabs it again. Aoi growls as he exits the room. Outside he's confronted by a short man in a pin-up suit. Shades cover the man's eyes, and he radiates sleaze in waves. "I trust everything is fine, Aoi. I'm paying you good money to tie up my loose ends." The green-haired Junin scowls. "Don't worry, just a small conflict of interests." "Good, Zabuza and that Konoha team will meet again tomorrow. I want you and that tan wench to kill whoever is left standing, am I clear?" The tiny man says, his sleazy grin never once leaving his face. Crystal, Aoi muttered, wishing he could dice the little man in front of him. The green-haired shinobi walks off to plan, hopefully that stupid girl would get a grip. A missing nin killing another missing nin was as commonplace as walking on water in the shinobi world. The sooner she accepted it, the sooner she'd be of use again. Naruto stares up at what passes for a daimyo's estate, while the castle itself is quite striking when compared to the rest of Nami. No self-respecting daimyo would ever allow his estate to decay in the way the castle Naruto gazed at was. For to show weakness in such a manner tarnishes the name of the entire providence. The walls of the estate were in need of much repair, the path leading up to the gates sat cracked and worn. As he neared the gate, he noticed two brutish-looking thugs standing guard. "What you want, brat? Ain't you supposed to be helpin' mama do the dishes?" One of them mocked, this comment slightly enraging the wanderer, who gave no response. Words are akin to pity when conversing with the feeble-minded. "Get lost, the daimyo ain't accepting no visitors." His companion slurred. Naruto could smell the cheap sake on his breath from a good 2 yards away. "I've got an appointment, I'm afraid he'll have to see me." The drunken thug growled, "I told ya to scram, kid, best do it or I cut you up," he says, flashing the hilt of a katana. This makes the wanderer scowl, he tarnishes the way of the sword by daring to wear one. Naruto detested ninja and common bandits who wielded katana, the very notion sickened him. A ninja? An honor-less cat swinging the tempered soul of a swordsman? Anytime he'd encounter a ninja with a katana, he'd go at great lengths to break it. One memorable instance was brazenly attempting to shatter a purple-haired ANBU's blade, even though he was greatly outclassed. He shattered her sword, but almost paid the ultimate price for it. This was only one occasion where his hatred of shinobi caused him to act reckless and brash. "I really must insist you me through. I've an important message to deliver," the wanderer said, tapping the makeshift hilt of his bakuto. "I warned ya," the drunkard yelled, as he ran at the blonde, sword drawn. In a way that appeared to the ronin as would a child rushing him with a stick. Ducking below the clumsy thrust, he slams the hilt of his bakuto into the man's stomach. His sword clatters to the floor, and his bruised body follows. "Wataru!" The second thug yells in surprise as his partner is felled. The second thug rushes him, his own sword in position to decapitate the blonde. Naruto rams his bakuto into the ground, as the second thug nears. He kicks up the first's discarded sword, grabbing it mid-air. Naruto thrusts a chakra-less Suchiro Arashi the man's way. The blade rams into the oncoming sword, cracking it and skewering the thug. The man can only gurgle, as blood leaks from his mouth. Staring down at the blood-soaked blade, he stabs the unconscious first guard. Placing his foot on the blade, he snaps it in two, leaving the latter half of the sword embedded in the dying man. Naruto spares no other glance at his victims, they had chosen their path, and he had ended it. There was no good, and there was no evil. There is only death, the old man had taught him that though the memory seemed fuzzy. As he walks through the decrepit gardens of the daimyo's estate, he notices how lifeless the whole of the castle seems. No scholars discussing their respective fields. No ladies in waiting gracefully walking about. No samurai standing at attention. All the hustle and bustle of a daimyo's castle was absent. He pried open the shut doors, quietly stepping into the main hall of the rundown castle. An unsettling silence was all that awaited the blonde Rurouni. If the gardens were vacant, then the daimyo's court was absolutely devoid of any sense of life. He stumbled around the empty hall searching for some sign of life, preferably the daimyo himself. The emptiness concerned him. Had the daimyo abandoned his nation? As he examined the remains of what he was certain was a silk dress kimono. A strangled yell alerted him, the blade of a sword embedding itself into the wooden post where his head occupied moments before. Drawing his wooden sword, he rounded on the figure of a lanky young man wearing a blue kimono. Maru shoulder guards adorned his shoulders. His brown hair framed his face in a way not often seen outside of shinobi, reminiscent of a duck's backside. The young man attempted to remove his blade from the post, but he had quite the difficult time of it. "What the hell do you want, you bastard scum?" he growled, looking quite comical, attempting to remove his sword from the post, whilst simultaneously attempting to look intimidating. I am looking for the daimyo of this kami devoted place, you know him? The blonde answered, grabbing the hilt of the sword and removing it from the post easily. He tossed it to the mock samurai. Growling at the blonde, the man holds his sword in a basic kata suited for sparring with a bakuto or shinai, but completely unsuited for combat. You're looking at him, kid, did that midget send you? You're the daimyo? You look a little young, buddy, just what the hell is going on here? Naruto asked. Indeed, he found it hard to believe this guy, who looked no older than maybe 17, was the ruler of an entire nation. The man wasted no words, preferring to swing his sword downwards onto the Roroni's head. A ridiculously telegraphed attack, Naruto rolled forwards, wincing as he slammed his wound into the floor. He brought his bakuto up in defense, just as he predicted. The man's follow-up was just as weak. You learn your swordsmanship at a weekend class or something, I've seen kids that put you shame. He mocked, hoping to get a rise out of him. With a yell, the man lunged at Naruto. Their two swords clashed. Obviously the man's sword outclassed Naruto's simple training sword. However, his movements were too static, there was no real power behind his strikes. The two engaged in a rather awkward fight. By all means Naruto should outclass the would-be daimyo. However, the thrice-damned wound on his chest, and without access to chakra. The handicapped Naruto broke even with the mock samurai. The teen's sword style was unorthodox and frankly ridiculously ineffective. But he'd have to hope Sakura-san could forgive him, because he was banging himself up just defending. The older teen slashed wildly, forcing the blonde to jump back. That's enough. I am tired, Naruto muttered, sheathing his bakuto. You're tired? The older teen laughed. There's no breaks on the battlefield. Naruto smirks. Let me show you. Let me show you the difference in our skill, he says, closing his eyes as he does. The would-be daimyo didn't seem to like this all too much, raising his sword above his head. He yells, as he rushes towards the calm blonde. Die, bandit scum. Naruto places his right foot forward, his eyes still shut. He doesn't need his eyesight to know he's assumed the Iai stance. Batojutsu, Lord Inishi's forte. The blonde wanderer thinks, as he feels the mock samurai draw closer. Opening his eyes abruptly, Naruto lunges straight at the oncoming teen. A burst of chakra hits him, leaving the surprised wanderer to fly off course, clipping the mock samurai in the thigh, instead of in the chest. An agonizing wave of pain hits him as he lands, bringing the victorious blonde to his knees. Behind him the would-be daimyo also kneels, wincing and furiously rubbing his knee. As he stands on shaky legs, Naruto is surprised when he hears soft sobs emanating from behind him. Why am I so damn useless? The older teen murmurs. Naruto shuffles closer to him. The sight of a broken man is not a pretty sight. He's seen and heard the howls of a man whose spirit has been broken many a time on his travels. Are you Nami no Kuni's daimyo? He asks, as gently as he can. The brown-haired teen screws his eyes shut tight, in an attempt to hold in tears no doubt. I am nothing but a puppet. Nami doesn't have a daimyo, it has a failure. The wanderer sighs. Tell me, who or what is Gato? Instantly the young daimyo's eyes harden. Gato is the scum-sucking bastard who ruined my country and killed my father. He's a waste of oxygen degenerate who rapes and uses the land my father worked so hard to create as he pleases. Naruto narrowed his eyes. So, he was the son of the late daimyo of Wave. How does one man accomplish this? Is he powerful? Just who exactly is this bastard? Gato's so weak even a failure like me could kill him. He's a crooked merchant. He's got a monopoly on all goods coming in or out of the country, he spat. Now Naruto was beginning to understand, because Nami was an island nation. Anyone who could control its ports was basically ruler of the entire country. Why don't you fight? Surely the people will follow you into a revolution. The older teen shook his head fiercely. The people do not trust me. I'm a coward. I let Gato do as he pleases because I fear for my own life. That man regularly employs rouge ninja and bandits. Naruto was disgusted. His country was falling to pieces and he hides behind locked doors. He'd created some kind of boogeyman out of a regular sleaze. Naruto was sickened. Outside people beg for scraps of food. Children roam the streets stealing to survive. Crime runs rampant, and here you sit hiding from your boogeyman. What the hell do you know? Who the he are you to judge me? Don't pretend to know this country's problems, you bastard vagrant. The blonde Ronin turns his back to the angered daimyo. Who am I? I'm just a simple wanderer, but I'll tell you this. It's damn messed up when a Rurouni cares more about a country than that country's daimyo. I'll save this country. Your gato's got thugs and missing nin? I don't care, I'll cut down all the corruption. I'll bring true peace to this land, just you wait. The older teen said nothing, for there was nothing left to say. As Naruto walked off, the young daimyo abruptly calls out, "Wait, Rurouni." Naruto turns slowly. Before him the disgraced daimyo kneels on the floor bowing in shame. "I'm a weak coward," he says. "So all I can do is give you this, my father's sword." He presents the blonde with the blade he just tried to kill him with. A chikuto, a guardless straight sword. A blade mostly used for ceremonial purposes and unsuited for combat. Still it had an edge, more than his bakuto could claim. Accepting the sword, he slides it into place next to the bakuto. Then walks off. Words were not necessary here. "Good luck, Rurouni, my country depends on you." As he makes his way back through the garden, Naruto has the distinct feeling he's being watched. Pausing, the blonde closes his eyes. "You can come out now, ninja, your shadows are gone." A sharp laugh rings throughout the compound. From a high wall jumps down quite the familiar face. "Hey, you called Blondie?" A boy about his age. A purple sleeveless shirt covers what was once bare chest. Gray cargo shorts adorn what was once. Well, you get the idea. His silvery blue still framed his infuriating face, and his odd violet eyes still smirked. The huge unsheathed Nodaichi blade strapped to his back was new though. "You," Naruto growled. The former nudist grinned. "Yeah, little old me again. Where's your blade and your woman? Some other guy already beat me to them." The Rurouni scowled. "Of all the damn people. Of every conceivable circumstances. Why run into him, severely weakened and without his sword? If it's a fight you want, it's a fight you'll get, you exhibitionist." He growled. A mocking laugh is his only response. "Fight you? You look like you'd keel over if I so much as poked you." "No, I'm here offering a truce." Now it was Naruto's turn to laugh. "Why the hell would I work with you?" The blue-haired teen grins that toothy grin that Naruto would love to punch. "See, I think we're working towards the same goals here. You want to find Zabuza-senpai, right?" That's right, his impromptu mission from May. It had felt like so long ago, so much had gone to hell since that day he left, over 3 weeks ago. "Plus you look like ya need the help, I mean look at you. Hell, your top knot's even gone. What the hell happened to you?" Naruto mulled it over. He could recognize the benefits. And this guy probably actually knew what Zabuza looked like. Still, Fu's betrayal rung heavy in his mind, and in his damn wound. "Why the hell should I trust you? You're a damn ninja." "I'm a swordsman first, and a ninja second. Will you not take the word of a fellow swordsman?" Betrayal, paranoia and dissent. Those struck clear in Naruto's mind, however he figured he had nothing to lose except the very thing always on the line. "So what do you say, truce?" A splash is heard. Naruto's fist passes clear through the blue-haired teen's head. "Truce." The teen grins his toothy grin. "I think we might have got off on the wrong foot." "I'm Hizuka Suigetsu," he says. "Uzumaki Naruto." That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.